What are you doing here? Came to hang out with Summer, Skylar said. When did you two get so close? She asked me for a bunch of travel tips. Oh, Leo nodded, not pressing the issue. What girls did in their private time was their business. Besides, Summer had mentioned wanting to travel. Sharing some advice seemed normal enough. Let's go in together. Leo took a deep breath and raised a hand to knock. Leo, Skylar said, stopping him. I don't have any right to stop you, but Summer might not want to see you. Why? She might have something she can't talk about. Skylar's fingers twisted in the air, a picture of conflict and anxiety. The moment she said those words, something she can't talk about, Leo's expression changed. A suspicion he'd been nursing, the very reason for this trip, was about to become reality. Is she pregnant? Leo's car accident had been on September 10th of last year. Today was February 11th. Exactly 5 months had passed. The last time he'd seen Summer was around New Year's Day, which would have put her just over 3 months along. He'd specifically asked a doctor about it. They told him that while every woman is different, depending on her fitness and body type, a pregnancy generally doesn't start to show until after the 3-month mark, when the uterus expands beyond the pelvis. Using the car crash as a start date wasn't perfect, but it was close, because he remembered seeing her the week before the crash. And that memory, a genuine piece of his own past, completely shattered the story Summer had told him. In her version of their history, she'd sworn that before the accident, the only time they'd seen each other was after her first big concert. The story between them ran deep, so it was possible she'd omitted it to simplify the narrative. Or it was a lie, and if she was lying, he suspected the reason was a child. Fragments of that pre-crash meeting had been surfacing in his mind. They'd had a fight, an argument about having a baby. It was normal for a young couple to talk about kids, especially one as seemingly inseparable as they had been. But Leo had always dodged the subjects of marriage and fatherhood. Summer, feeling insecure despite dating a campus heartthrob, had pushed the issue. Leo, we could get pregnant secretly, behind the label's back, she had said. Once it's too far along, they'd have no choice but to help me hide it. It was a naive plan, but it was what she truly wanted. As expected, he'd refused, trying to explain the reality of her career, that she couldn't have both at the same time. Naturally, she hadn't agreed. Shaking the broken memories from his head, Leo ignored Skylar and knocked firmly on Summer Lynn's front door. Summer's mother opened it. The moment she saw Leo, her face was a canvas of shock, followed by a flash of conflict and indecision. Mrs. Lynn, Leo said lightly, are you not going to let me in? Of course not. Leo, come in, please. She opened the door wider, gesturing for him to enter. Where's Summer? She's not feeling well, resting in her room. She hasn't been feeling well for a while now. What is it exactly? Leo dropped onto the sofa, his tone casual. It's just work stuff. Her neck, her back. All those performers' aches and pains. She just needs to rest up. I'll go see her. Leo watched her mother's face, not saying another word as he stood and walked directly towards Summer's bedroom. He didn't remember which room was hers, but in a house with a layout identical to his own, it was easy to guess. Skylar didn't follow. Instead, she sat down on the sofa as if she'd been there 100 times and started chatting with Summer's mom, her eyes occasionally flicking toward the bedroom door. Summer. Leo knocked twice. No response. He opened the door and walked in. It wasn't polite, but their relationship was past the point of standing on ceremony. On the bed, Summer was curled up, facing the wall, fast asleep. The noise hadn't disturbed her. Sleeping well, I see, Leo murmured to himself, pacing the room. His gaze was immediately drawn to a set of photos on her desk. 8 pictures, lined up in perfect order, clearly labeled with numbers, 12 through 20. He understood at once. A photo for every year from 12 to 20 years old. They were all taken in the spring, in the exact same spot, in front of the lounge chair in the backyard of their houses in Riverbend Estates. Leo stared at the progression, from the boy with the buzz cut to the man he was now. It was as if they didn't need to search for proof of their past. Their past was everywhere. He pulled open a desk drawer. Inside were old yearbooks and journals, the artifacts of a student's life. They were like those of any other teenage girl, filled with neat handwriting and sentimental quotes copied from who knows where, a portal into an adolescent soul. But there was one key difference. On the title page of every single one, there were 2 names. Writing your own name signifies ownership, but writing 2 names with a big heart drawn between them, that changes everything. Since entering the room, Leo hadn't said much, other than a few words to himself. He was just quietly sifting through the evidence of their shared history, like an archaeologist digging for forgotten treasure, hoping to unearth something buried in his own mind. The power of time is a terrifying thing, so terrifying that even the brain's own defense mechanisms can't resist it. As Leo sat there, flipping through the pages, fragments of memory began to surface on their own. Just like that, his past trickled back like a stream flowing down a mountain. He was suddenly struck by an image. He was in this very room. A girl in a school uniform with a high ponytail sat at the desk, scribbling furiously, secretly drawing a large heart. During a break, she glanced back at the boy with the buzz cut drooling all over her pillow as he slept. And the image shifted. A man in a black polo shirt sat at that same desk, now too small for him. He turned and looked at the woman on the bed. She slept gracefully, without a sound. Only this time, her pillow was soaked with tears. It's the middle of the day, and you're still sleeping? Leo, when did you get here? Summer sat up, her eyes red and swollen as she looked at him, bewildered. Still a great actress, I see. Leo handed her a tissue, gesturing for her to wipe the tear tracks from the corners of her eyes. I knew you weren't feeling well, but I've been busy. Just wanted to come check on you. I'm fine. And the baby in your stomach? Is it fine, too? Leo said it bluntly, sitting on the edge of the bed and looking at the familiar face. Tell me what you're thinking. Were you planning to have it behind my back? I'm not pregnant, Leo. Then why are you hiding from me? Given my situation, it's not really appropriate for me to be around you right now. An ex-girlfriend probably shouldn't be hanging around while her ex was building a new life. So the pregnancy? What's your plan? Leo, I'm just sick. I'm really not pregnant. And you expect me to believe that? The truth was staring him right in the face. All that was missing was a child suddenly appearing and calling him dad. But this was complicated. The baby was a Miller, but he had to respect Summer's decision. Summer, let's go to the hospital. We'll get you checked out. If it won't harm you, we should terminate it. Summer was still college-aged, in the prime of her life. If she became a mother now, her future would be chained to a child. He still wanted her to live the life she chose for herself. Leo, even if I was pregnant, which I'm not, I wouldn't get rid of it. Leo was powerless. He couldn't exactly drag her there against her will. Is the baby mine? I'm not pregnant. I'm saying if you were. Would the baby be mine? Leo, what kind of question is that? Whose baby would it be if not yours? I'm not accusing you of cheating. I'm asking if, when it's born, it will call me dad. When Leo asked this, his mind was completely blank. There were no mature thoughts, just a deep sense of bewilderment. He still felt like a kid who hadn't had his fill of fun, who still wanted to waste time at a land center. The topic of fatherhood was so alien that his brain short-circuited. Thinking of this, he paused, then leaned closer to Summer, a little embarrassed, and did something countless married men have done before. Can I? Listen, as much as Leo had always run from marriage and kids, he couldn't help but feel a surge of curiosity and wonder at the thought of a tiny life. The miracle of it all. Can a baby really just stay in there? How do you think you got here? Summer shot back, then said, her tone softening, I'm really not pregnant, Leo. I know. Let's just pretend you are. Can't I just pretend to listen? Summer sighed, a look of helpless resignation on her face. She lifted her blanket, revealing her oversized pajamas. Go ahead. Whoa, I can hear a heartbeat. Thump, thump. That's my heart. All right. Whoa, it's gurgling. Like a little monster. I haven't eaten breakfast yet. My stomach is growling. Leo looked up, utterly baffled. Are you sure you're not pregnant? Why would I lie to you? But before the amnesia, you were so desperate for a baby. That night, you even took off the sea. Don't say it. Summer covered her face, her cheeks burning. It was just one time. It's not like it's a guaranteed thing. Then come to the hospital with me. I'll only believe a doctor's report. Leo, I'm not lying to you, okay? Summer reached out and patted his arm gently. I'm really not pregnant. Besides, I'm busy planning my trip. I have a lot to do. That sentence only amplified Leo's suspicions. Where are you going? Just out to see the world. Find someplace warm and settle down. Isn't Riverbend warm enough? I'm looking for someplace warmer. All right, it was her choice. He couldn't force her. He'd said what he needed to say. Still, he found his eyes drifting back to her stomach. Could there really be a little monster in there? I support whatever life you choose, he said finally. But if he's born, can you just let me know beforehand? Summer froze. She looked at the boy in front of her, his awkward gestures, his panicked expression. It had been years since she'd seen Leo look so young. Leo, you don't have to worry about my future. We're both going to walk our own paths, right? But it's my son or daughter. I have to be responsible. Even if I were pregnant, it would have nothing to do with you anymore. Whatever happens, good or bad, I'll handle alone. But the child is innocent. Leo sat down, patiently trying to explain. No one understands what it's like to not have a father better than me. If your father's dead, that's one thing. The hardest part is when he's alive, but might as well be dead. Growing up, A kid will always hope their father will be there for them, but he can't be. Having that hope crushed again and again. That's guaranteed to cause serious problems. You're right, she said softly, but I'm not pregnant. Fine, fine. Leo stood up and walked out of the room. He couldn't make sense of her words, a confusing mix of truth and lies that left him deeply unsettled. He decided to try a different angle. Skylar, I want the truth. What is going on with Summerlin? Leo grabbed Skylar by the collar and dragged her into the bathroom, ready for a full-blown interrogation. Boss, have mercy. I don't know anything. Where is she planning to go? Since Summer had asked Skylar for travel advice, she must have mentioned a destination. Wherever I go, Skylar said, a slow smile spreading across her face. She goes. Huh. Leo stared into Skylar's laughing eyes, momentarily speechless. When Leo got home, he told his mom everything. He didn't have some grand plan. He just figured his mom would have more experience with this kind of thing. But her answer only deepened his confusion. I've suspected as much for a while now. Diane untied her apron and started recounting events from before New Year's. She'd heard from Summer's mother about Summer throwing up, about her refusing to let her mom accompany her to a doctor's appointment. Diane had even called Summer herself to ask about a potential pregnancy. Later, she had brought over chicken soup, but Summer had been distant. Then, when Diane had invited her for New Year's dinner, the invitation was declined. Son, I need to ask you something, Diane said, her voice serious. If she really is pregnant, what do you want to do? It's up to her. And what if she wants a shotgun wedding? That's not happening. Leo shook his head. The thought was absurd. It wasn't about responsibility or respect. If Summer had kept the baby without his consent, had she respected his wishes? A pregnancy is a two-person decision. If this was true, it proved Summer hadn't considered his feelings at all. In his eyes, it would actually lower his opinion of her. It might have been the choice she wanted, but for him, and for the child, it was the definition of selfish. A little Leo would be born into a world of questions. Where's your dad? Is your dad dead? And as for Leo himself, he would be thrown into fatherhood completely unprepared. He wasn't ready. Mom, can you talk to her later? And tell her how I feel. Let her know that there's no future for us. It would be more intimate coming from another woman, and his mom could convey his message more tactfully. If he went himself and said, don't even think about trapping me in a marriage, give it up, it would just sound wrong. I will, Diane said. But what if she insists on having it? Then she'll have it. She makes her own choices. She deals with the consequences. Leo felt he'd done enough. There was no winning choice here. But when you have to make a choice, he thought, the first person you have to be true to is yourself. Leo, you're starting to consider yourself more. That's the biggest change in you, before and after the amnesia. Dr. Evelyn Shaw leaned against her desk, handing him a cup of coffee. It was their usual, thrice-weekly session. You make me sound like some kind of saint, always putting others first. You should be grateful for that part of yourself, because now it's their turn to put you first. You've realized how precious your own identity is. You're no longer overly concerned with the thoughts of others to the point of self-sacrifice. What does that have to do with them putting me first? It's a clear sign of being loved. Because they love you, you increasingly see yourself as valuable. You don't think being loved is just about having someone to take care of you, do you? Evelyn picked a book from the shelf and placed it on the desk. She opened it silently, admiring the pages. Framed by the bright window, she looked the part of a refined, elegant intellectual. Until you saw the title of the book she was holding. Venus in Furs. What's this? It's by Sacher-Masoch. Want to read it? Do you have to be reading that right now? Learning never stops. Evelyn was dressed in casual loungewear, with long, woolen socks pulled up over her feet. She had a delicate constitution and was always cold. It was because of that delicate constitution that Leo came 3 times a week. I think 3 times a week is a bit much. Feeling drained, Evelyn raised a playful eyebrow. Under the table, she casually extended a foot and rested it on Leo's thigh. You're playing with fire. That means you have a fire inside you. Evelyn leaned forward over the desk, the pressure slightly altering the shape of her chest. Tell me, as your memories return, are you feeling a sense of disconnect between your past and present? It's manageable. When someone is stubborn, as you says, manageable, it means the situation is so severe that even you have to admit there's a problem. It's just, in my spare time, I find myself getting lost in memories for a bit. Thinking. Just simple thoughts? No emotions? Maybe some resentment. Leo held Evelyn's foot in his hand and leaned back in his chair, letting out a long sigh. Over the past few days, he had often found himself just sitting and staring into space, digesting the memories that were returning to him, trying to piece them into a coherent story. The recovery of his memories involving Isabella had been a major turning point. They were recent, long-term, and intense, giving him a direct line to his most recent state of mind. It also meant the delayed side effects were finally here. Leo, how many fingers am I holding up? What am I, 3 years old? Don't laugh. You could be experiencing cognitive dissonance. Evelyn had anticipated these side effects. In fact, her early strategy of withholding information about Summer and building up a certain image of her was designed to combat this very issue. The post-amnesia Leo was obviously a different person. Evelyn had guided him, helping him establish a healthy sense of self. He had an ex-girlfriend who had wronged him, but a world of new opportunities and relationships lay ahead. Under that guidance, Leo had been free of psychological turmoil, sailing smoothly forward. It wasn't fair to Summer, of course. A long-term relationship couldn't be defined by a simple label. But a simple label was the most effective tool, preventing Leo from obsessively digging into his past while helping him build confidence. What did Summer's fate have to do with Evelyn? She couldn't care less. And so, a confident, vibrant Leo emerged. But the real Leo wasn't vibrant. Before the accident, he'd had serious psychological issues. Simply put, he was a depressed kid. When the vibrant Leo found the depressed kid in his own memories, his natural reaction was disgust. I don't really understand the me from back then. That's perfectly normal. 20-year-olds don't understand their 10-year-old selves. 30-year-olds don't understand their 20-year-old selves. Is there any way to restore my memories of Summer? I want to know completely why. Why what? I want to know where my depression really came from. My professional advice? Go talk to Skylar Reed first. Why? Because the root of the problem is either with her, Evelyn leaned in, whispering in his ear, her lips brushing his skin, or with Summer Lynn. Or with both of them at the same time. Skylar was leaving. On the day of the Lantern Festival, Leo heard the news from Skylar's father when he arrived at the Reed's house. I hear you're doing quite well for yourself. Stephen Reed was a relaxed, easygoing man. He sat in the spacious living room pouring tea, his movements casual. Even though the young man across from him had become a rising star in Riverbend's high society, their interaction was the same as the first time they'd met. Want to come with me to the airport tomorrow to see her off? Stephen asked offhandedly. He didn't think much of it. He assumed Leo was planning to go anyway. The birthday party might have ended on a sour note, but it hadn't stopped his daughter from running over to Leo's place every chance she got. Kids grow up, you can't hold them back. Wait, Mr. Reed, I'm a little lost. Leo truly was. She was leaving tomorrow? What was going through her head? Just a few days ago, she was hell-bent on dragging him away with her. Now, without a word, she'd finalized her plans. It was bizarre. Mr. Reed, you and Skylar aren't teaming up to trick me, are you? Trick you how? Like, she's not really leaving tomorrow. She's just using this to force me to go with her. You go with her? Hearing this, Stephen put down his teacup in surprise, leaning forward with a frown. You'd throw away your business? Your fiancé? Everything? The questions seemed simple, but Leo could feel the judgment behind them. Nobody believed he would drop everything to go traveling. Outsiders who barely knew him didn't believe it. The people closest to him who knew everything didn't believe it either, because deep down they all thought it was unnecessary. If you want to travel, take a vacation. Go for a month and come back. What was the point of running around the world with Skylar Reed? Didn't Skylar know this? Of course she did. So why was she so insistent? Mr. Reed, I'm just going to head upstairs. Go ahead. You're here. Skylar, fresh from a hot shower, her face flushed and rosy, bounced up and waved at him. You're leaving tomorrow? Yep. Why didn't you tell me? Because I hate goodbyes. They make my eyes do this weird, spinny, watery thing. Given up on inviting me? I've let go of my savior complex. I'm respecting your destiny. Skylar chuckled, dabbing moisturizer on her face. A towel turban was wrapped around her head, making her look like a Persian prince. That sounds familiar. I've definitely said it to you before. When? When you were fighting with Summer Lynn. You told me to give up on helping Summer. Leo wasn't surprised by the answer. It was a familiar refrain. Almost everyone, Peyton, Evelyn, Isabella, had told him to give up on her. Their reasons varied, but the conclusion was always the same. I told you to give up on your other female friends. That's what you called them back then. Skylar bent down and pulled out a huge bag of snacks, plopping it down in front of Leo. She patted a beanbag chair, signaling for him to sit, then started divvying up the snacks like a kindergarten teacher. One for you, one for me, one for me, one for me. You told me to give up on them? Leo pushed all the snacks back toward her, curious. Yeah, if you didn't have a savior complex, your life wouldn't be so exhausting. That's a new one. Everyone else has a different take. Leo scratched his head, then a thought occurred to him. Then why did you hide the truth about Summer after I lost my memory? Isn't that a contradiction? Because after the amnesia, you didn't need her anymore. The past was just a chain holding you down. Are you saying I needed Summer before the amnesia? Leo found that answer even more ridiculous. How could he have needed her? But Skylar nodded with absolute certainty. The you before the amnesia desperately needed Summerlin. Explain. She was your emotional support. Like how my dad works himself to the bone every day, but the moment he comes home and sees his wife and kids, he's re-energized. So you told me to give up on the others? Yes, because you were living a tired, conflicted life. Physically tired because you were too busy. Mentally conflicted because you kept forming these special bonds that you couldn't let go of. I told you all of this. Because we're best friends. Skylar opened a bag of flamin' hot Cheetos and stuffed one into Leo's mouth, then popped one into her own. A mischievous grin spread across her face. Extra hot. Let's see who drinks water first. Leo, momentarily stunned, chewed instinctively. A split second later, the fire hit his tongue. He tried to spit it out, but another Cheeto entered his mouth. This one came from her lips. A sweet, soft kiss, scented with her fragrance, unfolded in the room. Droplets of water from her damp hair trickled down her cheek and onto his shoulder. The kiss was unforgettable, maybe because of its suddenness, or maybe because of the searing heat in his mouth. It lasted for a long, long time. Finally, Skylar pulled away, grinning. Leo, I know you came here to hear a story, and I'll tell you. I'm your best friend. You told me all your secrets. Then talk. I was your best friend. But then, I didn't want to be just your friend anymore. I figured. So, right here, right now, I'm giving you a kiss you'll never forget, so you'll always remember me. Leo felt like she was missing the point. He stood up, found a napkin, and wiped his lips again. He walked over to her, his expression serious. I need to know what happened between us in the past. It'll help me understand the cause of my psychological issues. I've already told you, actually. If you think about it for a second, you'll figure it out. Stop with the riddles. I told you, she insisted. You called everyone else your female friends. I was one of them. Only Summer was your emotional support. So, I wanted to take her place. Take her place. Hearing that now didn't seem so strange. In the current situation, everyone was vying for a position in his life. But before the amnesia, things were different. Peyton was still his cousin's fiancée, Evelyn was his therapist, and Isabella was his sugar mama. They were all trying to extend their relationships from their established roles. Only Skylar had challenged Summer directly, wanting to be with him simply as a girlfriend, with no business deals or transactional arrangements involved. Pure, unadulterated emotion. I've never really understood it, Leo said. What is it you see in me? He knew that first impressions could be a strange thing, that love at first sight could happen. But while a crush could be fleeting, long-term devotion had to be rooted in something deeper. You can like someone for a feeling, but you don't love them without a reason. Does a girl like you really get hung up on one person? Leo had met all kinds of women. He had his own system for analyzing them. It wasn't perfect, but it was based on experience. The more a girl had seen of the world, the less likely she was to get fixated on love. There were too many interesting things to explore to be naive enough to make love your everything. That's why Leo had never really considered Skylar a member of his harem. Putting aside his own feelings about the matter, he saw himself as a kind of launching pad for the women in his life, a chance for them to start over, a source of hope, a way to mend their broken hearts. He felt, without a doubt, that he was doing good in the world. The harem wasn't his goal. It was the reward he deserved for his journey. But Skylar was different. She was born to be free. Any restraint was a cage. She didn't need him to help her ascend. That's why he had always hoped to be a spectator in her life, watching her forever on the road. That was her soul. That's who she was meant to be. So why would someone who was meant to be on the road stop for him, getting tangled up in his life? It was baffling. Skylar, why? Leo couldn't figure it out. What are you mumbling about? Cheers. Skylar handed him a bottle of milk and raised her own with a grin. Leo, I'm really happy to see you like this. Like what? Being yourself. I don't really get what that means. For example, back when I was with Summer, even though everyone else thought I was being an idiot, I was doing what I genuinely wanted to do for her. Wasn't that being myself? Logically, the concept of being yourself was too subjective. What did it even mean? Leo, I think being yourself is a process of fighting against yourself. Explain. In the past, you wanted to travel the world with me, but now you don't. That's you being yourself. How is that being my? Wait a minute. Leo shot to his feet, staring at the smiling girl in front of him, his words catching in his throat. Didn't you say I rejected you before the amnesia? Rejecting something and wanting something are two different things. Just because your wallet is empty doesn't mean you don't want to order KFC, right? Did I ever actually say that I wanted to go? Want to hear a story? Skylar grinned, closing the bedroom door and gently pushing away her father, who had been pretending to dust the hallway while peeking in on them. Story time had begun. It was their second meeting, she said. The first had been at the Nexus Land Center, a conversation between a night shift manager and a rebellious student about staying out late. Their second encounter was at Northwood University. Leo was walking back to his dorm, half asleep. On the surface, his life seemed enviable, but in reality, it was brutally exhausting. Try pulling an all-nighter serving drinks at a bar, getting wasted, and then showing up for an 8 a.m. class. You can handle it for a day, maybe two, but day after day, it grinds you down. Most importantly, Leo had no friends. His roommates didn't want to exclude him, but they could never find him. Over time, he became a ghost. And then, in a strange place, they met again. The women's restroom. Hey, this is the women's restroom. Sorry, my head's a little foggy. When Skylar saw the man standing by the sinks, she didn't scream. She just studied the profusely apologizing guy. Do I know you from somewhere? Miss, it doesn't matter where you've seen me before, as long as you don't say it was in here. He smoothly cleared his name of being a repeat offender. You have time for jokes after barging into the women's restroom. The world could be ending, and I'd still have time for a joke. The apocalypse is hitting the planet, not putting me on mute. The familiar way of talking jogged her memory. You're that guy from the land center. Huh. The man squinted, looking closely at her face. You're that lost kid. Who are you calling a lost kid? Any adult who needs a stranger to find them a place to sleep is a lost kid. What else? Is that why you never answer my texts? Skylar charged forward, fuming. She'd gotten his number that night because he'd insisted the fee for finding her a place to stay had to be handled privately. But after she sent the money, her messages had vanished into a black hole. Who texted a lost kid? Say that one more time. Skylar chirped around him, complaining and arguing about the lost kid issue. A small smile played on the man's lips. He kept repeating it to change the subject, to shift the focus away from him being in the women's restroom. If she reported him, he'd be facing, at minimum, a formal reprimand. Skylar smiled, too. She'd finally found him. The guy who tricked her into sleeping at a police station and scammed her out her money. When had she, the great Skylar Reed, ever been taken for a fool? She had to get her revenge. The two, each with their own agenda, argued their way out of the building, oblivious to the wind and the people passing by. It was the second meeting of Skylar the Great and Leo the Thief, and it was starting to rain. P.S. That's all for today. Need to sort out the story arc and outline. First impressions are everything. In Skylar's eyes, Leo was a shameless thief who used deceitful tactics to swindle innocent girls out of their money. And she was going to make him pay. What's your name? Leo. Like the zodiac sign. Something like that. Always attracting people like you who want to take a bite. Who wants to bite you? Skylar looked at him with disdain, glancing at his skinny arms. There wasn't much meat on his bones. Who want to eat that? Pork was way better. If they sold you at the market, you'd be cheaper than pork. How did your mind jump to selling meat? Leo looked down at her, baffled, trying to follow the bizarre logic of her thoughts. You're the one who said it. When I said bite, I meant braised, boiled, steamed. Skylar counted on her fingers. Is pretending to be a lost kid some new way to hit on people? Who are you calling a low? Wait, who's hitting on you? Skylar shrieked, her body trembling with mock horror. Her finger, adorned with a pink manicure, shot out and pointed at Leo's face. Then she burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. Who would ever hit on you? If you're not, then why are you following me? Skylar's mind was filled with derision for the man in front of her. He was so full of himself. Who falls for someone after meeting them twice? You don't actually think I'm one of those clingy girls chasing after you, do you? Aren't you? Leo's tone was one of absolute certainty, so confident it even threw the self-assured Skylar for a loop. How could anyone on earth be this arrogant? To shut him down, she turned on her heel and walked away. I've never met anyone so conceited, she muttered, fantasizing that everyone is in love with you. She mumbled on, but got no reply. She stopped at the campus gate and turned around. He was gone. Damn it. It was a trick. After a fruitless search through the crowd, she looked down, defeated. The damn jerk had done all that just to get away from her, to avoid getting in trouble for the restroom incident. Now that he was gone, it would be almost impossible to find him again. She didn't know his major or his class schedule. All she knew was his name. And could you even trust a single word out of that liar's mouth? Fuming, Skylar returned to her dorm room, muttering under her breath. Stupid Leo, rotten Leo. Is his name even Leo? What are you grumbling about? I ran into this guy who's rotten to the core. I think his name is Leo. What did he do to you? Never mind that. Willow, can you help me find this guy named Leo? A bewildered Willow Shing thought for a moment, then whispered in her best friend's ear, why don't you try the campus confessions page? A light bulb went on over Skylar's head. She snatched her phone and pulled up the page. Ignoring the countless posts of candid photos of herself with captions like, looking for this girl, or straight-up love confessions, she went to the page's submission form. But she felt that just looking for him wasn't dramatic enough. She had to mobilize the entire student body to hunt him down. So she posted, today, I fell for a guy named Leo Miller, but he rejected me. I want to confess to him tonight at 6 p.m. in front of the dorms. Can you all help me find him? The post was guaranteed to get a reaction. The small group of guys who had a crush on Skylar would be seething, eager to see this Leo's face. A larger group would be curious to see who would dare to reject Skylar Reed, given her campus fame. But the largest group of all would be the ones just there for the drama. A public confession with a backstory? Who doesn't love some good gossip? The post caused a minor storm. Maybe college life was just that boring. Spin-off threads even started appearing. The comments section was a goldmine of trolls. Anyone got a pic of this Leo? Post it. Is it too late for me to legally change my name to Leo Miller? So Skylar Reed isn't a nerdy guys? Guess I gotta learn D&D now. My roommate's name is Leo. Dude above me, for real? Post a pic. Nah, can't just post people's pics without permission. No pic didn't happen. You're lying. I agree it's fake. This is Dave from the business school. You can ask around, we definitely have a Leo in our class. Skylar giggled as she read the comments, then made her way downstairs. She hadn't even bothered to dress up, wearing casual clothes and no makeup. She knew Leo was avoiding her. Why else would he ignore her texts? So, she didn't actually expect him to show up. But that was fine. If he didn't come today, she'd confess again tomorrow. Eventually, he'd get so annoyed that he'd have to face her. His roommates and classmates would surely track him down. She just needed to make him squirm once, and then their feud would be settled. But to her surprise, amidst the roaring crowd, Leo appeared. He walked onto campus from the street, looking like he had no idea what was going on, holding up his phone as if searching for someone. He finally spotted his 3 roommates and walked over, a puzzled look on his face. Skylar watched as Dave showed him the phone. A look of dawning realization spread across Leo's face. A sly smile, as bright as a crescent moon, lit up Skylar's eyes. She took a few small steps forward, ready to present the rose she had hidden behind her back. Leo, she began, I know you'll probably say no, but I just want to try one last time. In response to her question, Leo stepped forward to answer. She saw his lips move, but the noise in front of the dorm was deafening. People were shouting, holding up their phones to record, whispering excitedly. Skylar couldn't hear a word he said. She followed the script she'd rehearsed in her head. I knew you'd still say no, but I'm not giving up. I accept. Leo emerged from the crowd, opened his arms, and pulled her into a huge hug. The embrace left Skylar completely stunned. What are you doing? You confessed. I'm accepting, but I thought you were afraid to see me. If you confessed sooner, I would have seen you sooner. Leo's smile was wicked as he looked down at her, his always aggressive eyes filled with malicious glee. I can top this, you know. Make it even crazier. You believe me? Skylar believed him. Sometimes you don't need an answer from the person's mouth. The atmosphere gives it to you. When the chants of kiss her, started to echo around them, Skylar genuinely panicked. She was a classic case of all talk, no action. She had never considered what she would do in this situation because she'd never imagined it would happen. As Leo's face began to lean in closer, Skylar froze like a statue. The atmosphere was contagious. Sometimes, hormones make decisions for you, bypassing any actual feelings of love. The flirty glances, that first brush of skin, standing face to face with the crowd roaring around you. It was like an instant high, a total rush of adrenaline. Panicked, Skylar squeezed her eyes shut and stood perfectly still. She had no idea what to do. The feeling was so strange, like standing in a freezing ice cave and suddenly seeing a volcano erupt in the distance. The eruption doesn't raise your body temperature, but it tricks your brain into thinking it's so hot. Is he going to kiss me? Skylar's mind raced. But after a long moment, nothing happened. When she opened her eyes, she saw Leo holding up his phone, taking a picture of her. What are you waiting for? He asked. Leo looked up at the crowd of students, a smile in his eyes. All right, everyone, show's over. It was just a prank, but we saw her. Skylar was totally waiting for you to kiss her. We all saw it. Leo didn't respond, just kept insisting it was a prank before casually walking away. Skylar knew he was getting revenge. The man was petty. He was making a fool of her. A normal girl in this situation would have hated him forever. It was a cruel, vindictive prank, At the very least, they'd be sworn enemies for life. But Skylar was not a normal girl. In that moment, a brilliant light shone in her eyes. He might be even better at this than I am. Skylar felt that when it came to having fun, she had reached a master level. But she had one major flaw. When it came down to it, she still had a sense of shame. Leo, it seemed, did not. To truly get back at him, she would have to play the long game. First, she would feign weakness. She followed Leo all the way to Riverbend Estates and cornered him when no one was around. Can I be your apprentice? Learn what? To learn your skills, of course. Are you going to leave me alone or not? I have to get to work. What do you do? Can I do it too? I'm a host at a lounge. You want to come? Is it fun? If it's fun, I'll go. It's not fun. I want to hang out with you. Why do you keep rejecting me? Skylar had never really been interested in any boys before. They were either too timid to even look at her, or they tried to challenge her and ended up getting pranked into oblivion. Did people really think a thrill-seeking heiress would be a quiet, well-behaved girl? But Leo genuinely intrigued her. Because when he looked at her, it was like he was looking at a poisonous insect. Squashing it would get you poisoned, so he had to find other ways to shoo it away. Simply put, to him, she was a pest. Why can't we just be friends who have fun together? I'm busy. I won't bother you when you're working, Skylar promised earnestly. In her world, a college student's job was a part-time gig at a coffee shop or smoothie place. It couldn't take up that much time. I work all night. Then I'll find you during the day. During the day, I have to find time between classes to catch up on sleep. You work that hard? This completely upended Skylar's perception. She had assumed that someone as interesting as Leo must lead an equally interesting life. A person's soul is complex, shaped by different experiences. She had pictured them going skiing, hiking, or to a shooting range in their spare time. She had been searching for a fun partner in crime, but it seemed that wasn't going to happen. Leo, you're not just messing with me, are you? Miss, please stop making fun of me. We're not on the same wavelength. I'm just a girl from a normal family. What do you mean, miss? I saw your Van Cleef and Arpels bracelet. This is a knockoff from a street stall. $20, Skylar said without batting an eye, tucking the bracelet back into her sleeve. She was determined to stick to Leo until she got revenge for the Land Center incident. All right, how about this? I'll take you somewhere fun tonight, but you have to wait for me to get off work. Deal. But if you can't handle it, or if you think it's boring, you have to promise to never bother me again. Deal. Deal. Skylar snuck out of her dorm that night, just before lockdown. It was 3 in the morning. She had come prepared with a box that had a fake spider pop out, water balloons, and other prank gear. The heiress was ready for her revenge. But when she saw Leo dragging his exhausted body toward the noodle shop, she was at a loss for words. She had seen him 3 times now. The man was always flippant, if not downright vulgar. But now he looked too tired to even speak, the dark circles under his eyes consuming his entire face. You look exhausted. Maybe you should just go home and rest today. No, let's get your thing over with first, then I'll sleep. My thing? What else? Leo shot back. It was only then that Skylar belatedly realized she and Leo could never truly understand each other. Everything she did was based on having fun. But to Leo, she was just a problem that needed to be solved. I'm sorry, Leo. I think I might have disturbed your life. Admitting your mistakes is a good start. Can we be friends? She asked tentatively. No. I'll buy you dinner. No, thanks. Okay. Skylar didn't push it. The moment she realized she was bothering him, she decided to back off. They said their goodbyes in front of the noodle shop. She wandered through the dark campus alone, a feeling she quite enjoyed. But her mind kept drifting back to Leo. There was something odd about him, a feeling she couldn't quite place. It was like he was constantly running away. Not just from her, but from everything. What happened next only confirmed her suspicion. She saw him by the man-made lake on campus. What are you looking at? Myself. It's too dark to see anything. Skylar leaned over the railing, trying to find her reflection in the water. It was blurry, just a dark shape. Then she saw another shape climbing over the railing, preparing to arc gracefully into the lake. You might think Leo was trying to kill himself. A normal person would, but Skylar wasn't a normal person. She thought this must be the fun thing he was talking about. Jumping into the campus lake in the middle of the night when no one's around? How thrilling. So she jumped in too, whooping and cheering. 2 fish plunged into the water. One tried to pull itself in the depths, the other following mindlessly behind. Back in Skylar's room, Leo listened to the story, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. He'd heard many stories about himself, but none of them had felt like this. The reason, he realized, was simple. This story sucks. That was it. In all the other stories he'd heard, he was, if not a hero riding on a cloud, at least a vibrant, positive character. paired with a damsel in distress. It always created a sense of heroic salvation. But the Leo in this story sounded like he was on his last legs, like a dying tree. Can anyone be positive 24 hours a day? No, but the difference is just so. You put on a happy face at work, but you come home and snap at the smallest thing. That's because work drains you. I can't explain the switch between your different states, but I know people act differently in different roles. Skylar's point was valid. Leo understood. People act one way with old friends and another with new ones, and differently still with family versus a partner. But he still thought it was an exaggeration. You're definitely lying to me. That's not me. Then what kind of story sounds right to you? That you were actually a dark, fragile little girl, and with my help, you became full of sunshine and life. Leo, you're fantasizing again. Why again? Just a figure of speech. Skylar sat down with a grin, her fair, slender legs seeming to glow. Leo, you've heard enough hero stories. This time, you might have to try listening to the story of a failure. I can accept failure. You'd better. That night, Skylar said, they really did have a wild time. The most common problem with jumping into cold water at night is getting a leg cramp, especially without warming up. But the one who got the cramp was Leo. And the most crucial detail was that Leo didn't know how to swim. It was Skylar who saved him. In the comment sections of online posts featuring beautiful women with unattractive men or handsome men with unattractive women, you always see the joke. Did they save your life? Saving someone's life is a debt that can never be fully repaid. It's worth any price. The rescue itself should be a dramatic, tear-jerking scene. And the scene that night was indeed tear-jerking. Except it was Skylar who was crying. She was just so moved. Dude, you can't swim and you pulled a stunt like this with me? Although Skylar swam and worked out regularly to stay prepared for adventure, saving a person had taken a massive toll on her stamina. She lay exhausted on the grass, staring up at the sky, a huge sense of accomplishment washing over her. This was the spirit of adventure. This was the unexpected thrill she had spent her whole life chasing. Leo, you are totally my kind of crazy. Leo, gasping for air on the ground beside her, didn't respond. Leo, that was intense, but next time, maybe pick a stunt that's a little more manageable. Jumping in like that when you can't swim. What's the difference between that and suicide? I wasn't trying to kill myself. I didn't say you were. I'm just saying it looked like suicide. I wasn't trying to kill myself. Is that the only keyword you can understand? Leo stood up, dazed, and wrung the water from his clothes before starting to walk away. Leo, is something wrong? I'm fine. Then why did you try to kill yourself? If she couldn't see his true intention by now, she'd be a complete idiot. I told you I wasn't. If you have problems, you can talk to me. I can help. Whether it was out of basic human kindness or her admiration for him, Skylar felt she should show some concern for someone who was clearly suicidal. Her words did make him stop, but not to explain why he jumped. He just turned around and said, "Thank you." He looked at her sincerely. "Thank you for saving me. If you lost or broke anything, I'll pay you back. Just give me a number. You don't have to. I was just having fun. I'm still grateful. I owe you one. But please, don't ask any more questions." Faced with his wall, Skylar wasn't annoyed or hurt. It was his private business. If he didn't want to talk, she wouldn't pry. Then find me a place to stay. Aren't you afraid I'm a bad guy? You found me a place before. I get it. Are we really staying in a hospital? We got cold tonight. If we get a fever or something, we can get immediate help. Leo and Skylar were in an elevator at Riverbend General Hospital. He pressed a random floor button, ignoring the nurse's sideways glance. Not that the nurses paid much attention. With so many family members coming and going, who could keep track? We'll just find an empty room and crash. You stayed in a hospital like this before? I'm not that pathetic. It's just something I figured out when my mom was staying here once. He said it casually, but his actions were smooth and practiced. He pushed open a random door and stepped inside. It was the middle of the night, and the room was pitch black. They clearly weren't lucky. There was someone in the room. They came face to face with him the moment they walked in, staring at each other wide-eyed. Skylar was so nervous she almost screamed, her hand clutching Leo's shirt. This was so intense. She kept tugging on his sleeve, urging him to leave. Don't panic. I know him. Only then did Skylar relax, leaning against the wall and staying quiet. This is Mr. Martinez. Leo flipped on the light, revealing an ancient face, so old his teeth were nearly gone. Mr. Martinez is 78. On the bed is his brother, he's 72. Brain hemorrhage. A 78-year-old is taking care of a 72-year-old because they're the only two left in their family. Leo casually picked up an apple from the table and started eating. He bought them on a previous visit. Then he lay down on the middle bed and told Skylar to take the one by the wall. What is the essence of adventure? to experience things you've never experienced before. That night, Skylar slept next to a stranger, wearing an oversized t-shirt Leo had brought from home. Lying on the hospital bed, she tossed and turned, unable to sleep. She wasn't worried about propriety anymore. When conditions are rough, you automatically ignore those things. The feeling was surreal. When my mom was in the hospital, I happened to run into them at the entrance. The brother was in the ER, and Mr. Martinez couldn't use a smartphone. He wanted to withdraw some cash, but he didn't know how and couldn't understand the instructions. I just gave him a hand. In the darkness, Leo's eyes were bright. A sliver of light from the window illuminated the two old men. Mr. Martinez sat by his brother's bed, his eyes closed, perfectly still. It was 4 a.m. He was already awake. With no phone and no TV, she wondered if he was thinking about the rice paddies back home. Mr. Martinez's lunch is a bowl of millet porridge. After he feeds his brother, he adds hot water to the leftovers and drinks it himself. His Social Security is only a little over $300 a month. The cost of living in the city is too high. He's afraid to buy anything. Is there no other assistance? There should be, but his son got into trouble with some powerful people back in their village and got sent to prison. Mr. Martinez doesn't even know what other benefits exist. That's so sad. In the darkness, Mr. Martinez made no dramatic gestures. His wrinkled face would twitch occasionally, and he would reach out a hand to feel the air in front of his brother's oxygen mask. He didn't understand how the machine worked. He just kept thinking that the oxygen must come from a tank, and like in Ford Drip, it must run out eventually. What if he wasn't watching and it ran out, and his brother died? He couldn't read the monitor, and he didn't understand what the nurses said. So, again and again, he used the only clumsy method he knew to check. This modern stuff is amazing. It can even give you oxygen. Mr. Martinez muttered excitedly, clapping his hands together. Then he seemed to remember they weren't alone and looked over at the two young people with an apologetic, simple smile. But from his expression, he was still marveling at the wonders of technology. He had no idea that decorative fish tanks in the city could maintain their oxygen levels 24/7. Leo stopped talking, letting out a long sigh and turning over. A moment later, he murmured, "The people truly drowning and suffering never shed a single tear." But why? There was no grand spectacle here, but Skylar was still too shocked to speak. She had never seen anything like this. Because what you don't know can't hurt you. Leo, so do you want to be numb and ignorant or awake and in pain? I don't know, but I know there are people who have it much worse than I do. I don't have the right to cry. Leo, maybe you could try talking to me about it. Thanks. Let's get some sleep. Staring at the boy's back, Skylar felt for the first time like something was caught in her throat. She couldn't speak. Leo, maybe you should try a different lifestyle. This was the 4th time in 5 days Skylar had tracked Leo down. The only day she'd missed was for an exam. Her constant surveillance had given her a glimpse into his life. Leo, you seem so tired every day. This is the lifestyle I chose. But what for? Is it all for your girlfriend? You even found out about that. You're being a total simp. Skylar declared, indignant. Oh, what kind of attitude is that? I'm trying to help you. Simp, player, whatever. It's my choice. Why are you so worried about it? Because I'm a good person. Skylar hopped around the edge of the university track, skipping over a few steps. Leo, I'm going to save you. Do I need saving? Leo looked at her as if she'd told a ridiculous joke, his eyes widening as he laughed. Of course. Skylar's leather shoes clicked as she ran up to him, waving her arms. Leo, do you know how big the world is? How big? He asked, humoring her. You know, in my middle school geography class, I was half asleep when the teacher said that fjords are the one major landform not found in China. I remember thinking, if they're not here, why are we learning about them? But last year, I went to Norway with my mom. On a night when we were chasing the northern lights, our guide was driving and telling us about the mountains and seas. I looked out the right window, and the aurora was lighting up the winding road so beautifully. And right there, the fjords from my textbook appear before my eyes. Huge white glaciers and the deep blue of the ocean just standing there in silence, with the soft, warm lights of a town at the foot of the mountain. In that moment, I felt like I'd been hit by this massive surprise, and I was suddenly back in that stuffy classroom in my hometown. When I came to, I was standing on a mountain on the border of Norway and Sweden, crying under the North Star. Skylar stood there, lost in the memory, as if she were back in Norway. Leo, the world is really, really big. Don't you want to see it? That kind of life isn't for me. But Leo, it's not about whether it's for you or not. It's about whether you want it. If you spent the money you give to your girlfriend on traveling, you could definitely afford it. I've already made my choice. But Leo, seeing the world helps you make better choices. Skylar leaned in close, so close he could see the clear reflection in her eyes. Before you make a choice, you should at least see how many options you have, right? In the corner of the stadium, a girl in a white dress bent down, her bright eyes filled with a warm smile. A boy in a black casual outfit looked up at her, speechless. Leo, take a week off. Let's just try it, okay? Do what? Come with me. Experience a different way of life. What do I need to prepare? What's the budget? What gear should I buy? You don't need anything. Just come with me. Okay. The poplar trees around the track were silent, but a fierce southeast wind whipped through their branches, startling a magpie perched there. A free wind can move even the most numb of trees. The 1-week trip never happened, because Leo was bought. When the news reached Skylar, she couldn't believe it. After that, she found she couldn't contact him at all. For a long time, he didn't even come to school. It took ages for Skylar to finally corner him on a bright, sunny morning. She marched up to him, furious, demanding an explanation. What was his deal? How could he back out of a promise just like that? Leo, I'm starting to really dislike you. Sorry, it was an opportunity one couldn't pass up. The opportunity to be a boy toy. Skylar asked, genuinely curious. The opportunity to make money. So is it fun, being a boy toy? Not fun at all. It's exhausting. Is the rich woman good to you? She's very good to me. I'm grateful to her. But if she's so good to you, why are you so tired? Someone being good to you and you being tired have nothing to do with each other. Leo said casually, his hands in his pockets. Parents obviously love their children, but isn't it still exhausting to be around them sometimes? Don't parents still push their kids to the brink? I don't find it exhausting to be with my parents. Skylar was about to tear her hair out. She couldn't make sense of his example. Was being with your parents tiring? Not really. That's because your parents love you in the right way, Leo explained reasonably. But that reasonable explanation sparked an even bigger question in Skylar's mind. Then does Summerlin love you? Yes. Is there a problem with the way she loves you? Leo stood there in silence, not answering. He just said he was going to be late for class and had to go. But Skylar wasn't about to let this rare opportunity slip away. She followed him all the way to the classroom. Dave, who was saving a seat for his roommate, was stunned. SK, Skylar, why are you standing in front of me and staring at me? Dave swallowed nervously, completely baffled. He'd noticed it before. Whenever he and his roommates went out together, people would stare at him. Am I really that handsome? And now the campus queen was standing right in front of him, staring. Hey, can I sit here? There are no empty seats. Dave looked around. All 4 chairs were taken by his roommates. Having the campus queen sit next to them will be great, but where? I mean, can I sit in your seat? Huh. Dave's face turned bright red. He stood up, grabbed his books, and scurried to the back row. After hearing Skylar thank him, he silently looked up and smiled to himself. She thanked me. It was a psychology elective. The professor was at the front, lecturing about dreams and Freud. Many students were in the back, dreaming. Don't you have your own class to attend? I want to understand your heart. Leo, are you in love with me? I just want to know. You work as a host. You're a rich woman's boy toy, which means you must be great with words. So why don't you use those words on me? You're not paying me. Sweet talk is a service I provide. I can pay you. Skylar pulled out a debit card, her expression serious. She explained that she was still a kid, that she had to ask her parents for money, and while they always gave her what she needed, she had to have a reason. So this is all my savings, the allowance I never spent. Skylar had been saving it for an unexpected situation she couldn't explain to her parents. Now, she felt was the time. She couldn't quite figure out what this man meant to her. She just knew he had a big iron box inside him, and she wanted to open it. She was curious. Her sixth sense was telling her that opening that box would lead to an extraordinary experience. But when Leo saw the debit card, he couldn't help but laugh, a playful look in his eyes. I've already provided you with my services. Skylar was confused. What are you talking about? Why are you so curious about me? Leo prompted. Because your actions are so chaotic. They seem full of contradictions. The first time I met you, you were full of life and irreverent. The next time, you were depressed and lifeless. Summarize it more simply. It feels like you have a story. What kind of story? Pain? Regret? But have I ever told you the source of my pain? No, but I can kind of guess or figure out. But I'm not in pain at all. My work, summer. These are all things I chose. Why would I be in pain? Then why did you act so pained in front of me? Skylar was completely lost. Then Leo pointed at the debit card on her desk. A look of dawning horror crossed her face. You did all that just to get me to pull out my card. What else? Did you really think we had some deep connection? Leo's question left her speechless. They had only met a few times. She didn't know him, and he didn't know her. From his perspective, her obsession with him was probably just plain weird. I'm a professional host. Analyzing you is part of my job, Leo said, rubbing his eyes as he leaned on the desk, an unreadable smile on his face. When I first saw you, my impression was rich, loves to have fun, marches to the beat of her own drum. A perfect match for the clientele at the lounge. That's why I never answered your texts. For a girl who loves to play, a difficult challenge is the most attractive thing. I had to make you subconsciously realize that I wasn't some easy conquest. Then, the women's restroom incident. Have you ever wondered why it was such a coincidence? That you happened to skip class to go to the restroom that day? That you were the only one there, that I just happened to walk in? When enough coincidences pile up, they become inevitable. Because I've been watching you for a long time. You think this money is easy to earn? That day, I burst into your life again and then vanished just as quickly. For someone like you, who craves a challenge, I became the most difficult, most unpredictable thing in your life. So you made a move. From that moment on, you started investing your emotions, your actions, in me. Which meant I was one step closer to getting you into the lounge to spend your money. Because a woman's true love is never the person who loves her, but the person she has invested the most in. Your investment turned into that big public confession. But I couldn't accept that. I had to change tactics. That level of investment wasn't enough. I needed up the ante. I needed to trigger your desire for the next challenge, to make you invest more. Which meant I had to present an even greater level of difficulty. So I jumped into the lake, in front of you, and I took you to the hospital. I showed you a different side of my persona, making you believe I had a tragic past. Even though I never told you I was sad or why I was sad, you just felt that I was in pain. That triggered your second investment. You tried to save me, to take me on a spontaneous trip. That investment was far deeper than the first, and the stakes were higher. I was originally planning to go, and during that trip, I would have pushed you to make a third investment. But plans change. I was bought. I don't have the energy to spend on you anymore. So I'm telling you all this today to say, stay away from people like me. Leo pushed the debit card, funded by a young girl's allowance, back to her. He put his head down on the desk to sleep, leaving the girl sitting there, stunned. Everything he'd said was too much for her process. So, from the very beginning, you just wanted me to be your client? You were after my money. What else? But I thought. Skylar didn't know how to describe the feeling. Leo's words were so sincere. But any normal person would have heard the truth. Leo was admitting to being a massive player, even giving her a play-by-play of his scheme. By all rights, she should have hated him. But right now, her heart was a mess of complicated feelings. Was Leo sincere? A man of low morals? A liar? Countless labels flashed through her mind at once, making it impossible to form a clear judgment. So, can anyone tell me what I should do now? Should I just get up and leave? But Skylar looked at the side of the man's face as he slept on the desk. Leo, she said softly, no matter what you did, since you were honest enough to tell me, I forgive you. And how do you know, Leo said, lifting his head with a smirk, that this honest confession isn't just another carefully calculated plan? The early morning sun, filtering through the blinds, cast a golden light on his face. He was handsome. No makeup, no styled hair. Just raw, striking good looks. Are you still lying to me? You guess. Leo, you're just pulling a massive prank, aren't you? You're not really tricking me. Skylar felt like 100 tiny versions of herself were brawling in her head. They were all fragments of her feelings from the past few days, experiences that had felt so real that she couldn't make any definitive conclusion. I'm tricking you. Skylar's brain stalled. She couldn't form a reply. She looked up at the psychology professor, who had wavy hair and was wrapping up the class with a Q&A. Does anyone in the class have any psychological issues they'd like to discuss? Common things like friendships or love. Professor, Kevin has psychological issues. A chubby student named Kevin in the corner shot to his feet, glaring at his roommate, who had clearly put him up to this. His roommates were all cracking up. And what psychological issues does Kevin have? Professor, Kevin is a huge simp. Professor, they're lying. I'm not. Oh, then, Kevin, would you like to tell us about your love life? I just buy her dinner and give her gifts on holidays. That's all, Kevin mumbled, too embarrassed to look up. But his roommates chimed in. He's been buying this girl dinner for 6 months, giving her gifts for 6 months, but she's just stringing him along while messing around with a bunch of other guys. Professor, you have to talk some sense into him. The professor smiled at this common college dilemma. Instead of giving a lecture, she asked a simple question. Kevin, is what your roommates are saying true? Well, yes, but... So you know that this behavior is negative, correct? I know, Professor. Kevin nodded emphatically. Professor, I understand all the logic, but I just feel like she's different from those other girls. His classic line was met with a wave of laughter from the class. Anyone who spent time online knew it well. Skylar had heard it a million times. But right now, she couldn't laugh. When she turned to look at Leo, he was looking back at her. She felt that even though he was sitting right there in front of her, he was shrouded in a thick fog. She couldn't see him clearly at all. Leo, I believe you're just pranking me, right? Believe whatever you want. People always believe what they want to believe. I can feel your pain. Then tell me, what am I in pain about? Leo grinned. I work to support my family and help my girlfriend chase her dreams. I do it all because I love my family and I love my girlfriend. So what is there for me to be in pain about? Leo, are you really a huge player? It would be better if you said it with more conviction. It shows you really respect me. That day, of course, they parted on bad terms. There was no more conversation, no more arguments. But that night, Skylar couldn't sleep. Normally, she was the type to pass out the second her head hit the pillow. Her parents, who doted on her, noticed something was wrong. Usually, mother and daughter could talk about anything. But tonight, her mom found her curled up in a ball under the covers, refusing to talk, insisting nothing was wrong while her face screamed, I have something on my mind. Her mother sighed softly. Honey, are you in love? Mom, how could you say that? I could never be in love. No one is worthy of my love. And he's not even that attractive. I'm not interested in him at all. I was just asking. Why such a big reaction? What big reaction? I'm not against you dating, honey. What's there to hide? Her mom sat down and put an arm around her daughter's shoulder. I support you. Tell me about this boy. He's a college student. And that's it. Age, height, weight, personality, hobbies. How many girlfriends has he had? Mom, I don't know anything. How long have you known each other? A long time. Skylar's mom paused. Based on her experience, she had a sinking feeling this boy was a pro. Sweetheart, listen to your mother. Mom, he's different from the others. I haven't even said anything yet, but he really is different. Skylar Reed felt like she would never understand Leo Miller. If he wanted her money, why didn't he just take her debit card? Why did he give her that whole speech, that heart-to-heart act? But if she decided he didn't want her money, how could she be sure it wasn't just some elaborate reverse psychology? Her brain was about to short-circuit. She'd never met anyone like him in her entire life. The benefits of a sheltered upbringing were obvious, but so were the drawbacks. Sure, a low-level punk couldn't lure away a pampered rich girl. But what about a master-level player? It turned out there were levels to this game. When Skylar woke up, she had only one thought. She had to prove it through action. Leo Miller is not a bad guy. You're starting to sound obsessed, Willow Shung had said, looking up from the philosophical text she was reading in their dorm room. She couldn't for the life of her figure out what was so captivating about this Leo. What's so great about him, anyway? Willow, don't say that. If you met him, you'd be the same way. Don't underestimate me. Willow flipped a page, a hint of disdain on her face. At the very least, I wouldn't keep chasing a guy I knew was a player. Skylar felt a little stung by her best friend's merciless critique. She found it genuinely hard to explain the strange feeling she got around Leo. All she could manage was a sigh. Willow, you just wouldn't understand unless you've been through it. If I ever find myself in a situation like that, I'll join a convent. Willow, a person of faith like you shouldn't be tempting fate like that. It just means I have confidence in myself. The little angels and devils were still brawling inside Skylar's head. The problem remained unsolved. Should she accept that Leo was a con artist and cut her losses? Or should she keep digging, keep trying to figure him out? The first option was damage control. The second was a high-risk, high-reward gamble. But for Skylar Reed, it was a no-brainer. She had always loved a challenge. So she appeared in front of him again. I've been camped out downstairs for 3 days just to see you, she announced. As she spoke, she was squatting by the main gate of Riverbend Estates, eating greasy lo mein from a takeout box. She meticulously picked out the pieces of bok choy before taking another oily bite. Leo, standing before her, didn't seem surprised. I had a feeling you'd be back. What kind of feeling? A 90% certainty. Why not 100? Because in my world, the probability of anything succeeding is only ever 90%. You have to leave 10% for failure to manage your own expectations. So, that's basically 100% certain I'd come find you. Skylar froze, her wide, clear eyes blinking slowly. This guy is unreal, she thought. And here's Willow, going to the Celestial Master Sanctuary to pray to some master. The real master is right here. You win, Leo. I admit it. You can play me for a fool all you want. That doesn't sound right. Oh, I mean play with my emotions. Normally, a girl saying something like that would sound dejected. There's a sense of defeat in being completely outmaneuvered. But not Skylar. She was practically beaming. Leo, now I'm even more curious about you. How much money do you have? I only have what's in my personal bank account. Money I can spend freely without my parents knowing. It's about $6,000. $6,000 will buy you a week of my curiosity, and you won't even get primetime slots. Then a week is fine. Skylar scratched her head and held out her debit card again. That was the old price. Now that I'm a professional boy toy, my rates have gone up. But you told me to stay away, yet you knew I'd come back. What is it you really want? Skylar couldn't figure it out for the life of her, and she was getting so frustrated she was on the verge of tears. I'll admit you're playing with my emotions. Just please, tell me your endgame. Stop making me guess. I'll give you anything. I'm out here to make money. $6,000 is nothing to me. I want to make more money. But this is all I have right now. Just take it, and I'll save up more later. Her logic was that simple. She was so intensely curious about him that she was willing to pay the price to understand him. Hearing her earnest words, Leo leaned in close, his voice sharp. Some things are too harsh to say the first time, so I saved them for now, because I knew you'd be back. My goal is to make money. Right now, there's bigger money that requires my attention. I can't be bothered to waste my energy trying to drain your little piggy bank. The words were designed to hurt. A normal person would have slapped him, but Skylar just said, every little bit helps, right? Just take a little. Please. She was an open book, her thoughts tumbling right out of her mouth. Stay away from people like me, Skylar. We're from two different worlds. So what if I want to squeeze into your world anyway? She shot back with a grin. You take a boat to reach the island in the middle of the sea. You take a cable car to climb the towering mountain. If the destination is worth it, so is the price of the journey. She was curious. She wanted to open the box that was Leo Miller's heart. I'm here to make money, not to get into a relationship. My only goal is money. I'm giving you money to make. Don't look down on $6,000. I saved this up. I'll give you all the money I save from now on. Not interested. Leo turned to leave, but Skylar, shameless and persistent, grabbed him. The young woman clung to his shoulders, her voice turning whiny. Don't go. Leo, I don't know what kind of spell you put on me, but every night when I think about you, I can't sleep. Seriously? Does that line even sound right coming from a princess like you? You should say what you feel. All I know is that I feel awful when I don't see you, so I'm going to see you every day. Let go of me. The old ladies in my neighborhood are ridiculously nosy. Leo straightened his collar, finally letting out a sigh. Don't think I'm going easy on you, he said in a low voice. I just don't have the energy to deal with your money right now. I know. You love money the most. You have $6,000 in your account. For $6,000, I can spend one afternoon with you. And only until 7 p.m. I have to go home and make dinner. Not if you agree. Walk away if you don't. Skylar nodded, so fast her head was a blur, quickly offering him her debit card. Let's go. Let's go to the ATM. Skylar, do you have any idea how much $6,000 can buy? Perhaps Leo thought she'd been detached from reality for so long that she'd forgotten its value to ordinary people. He said, in some parts of the country, if you figure pork is about $3 a pound, $6,000 could buy you 2,000 pounds of it. I don't get it. Are you trying to say you're more valuable than pork? Skylar nodded, genuinely confused, tilting her head with wide eyes. Of course you're more valuable than pork. Just shut up. Don't rush to the ATM. Service first, payment later. For a brief moment, they found peace. Even if it was only for 3 short hours. Leo leaned his head against a large tree, glancing at the time on his phone every so often. All right, what do you want to do? Tell me what's hidden inside that big iron box in your heart. $6,000 for my life story. Think it's worth it? He said it, but his expression was certain, as if he already knew this was exactly what she wanted. Seeing his confidence, Skylar felt a flicker of doubt. Leo, are you doing this on purpose? Of course. Being a host is, in essence, selling a product. My past is the product I'm selling. Can you tell me about it? Driving consumption through emotion. Leo's customer service was, apparently, impeccable. He was nothing if not dedicated. He explained, the foundation of intimacy is the process of discovery. The more you know about someone, the closer you feel. It's human nature to want to open that box. But there are plenty of people I don't feel any connection with. That connection usually comes from a first impression. My first impression might not make you fall for me, but it's not going to make you hate me either. Skylar looked up and met his smile. He was 20, in the prime of his youth, his handsome face paired with a world-weary gaze and an excellent physique. Tastes may vary. You might not find him your type, but it would be hard to say you hated him. He'd won the genetic lottery, and that was the first card life had dealt him. He wasn't handsome because he was a host. He was a host because he was handsome enough to meet the basic requirements of the Cypress Lounge. But it can't just be your looks that are so captivating, Skylar said, asking whatever came to mind. It wasn't like she'd never seen a handsome guy before. She'd met major celebrities, and none of them had sent her emotions on a roller coaster ride like this. It's because I've kept my iron box locked, and I've turned it into the product I sell. I don't tell you my past. I show it to you through my actions. I make you guess, make you search. I trigger a mental process in you. The core of any romantic interaction isn't what will you do for them, but what can you make them do for you. Short-term emotional bonds are often forged in moments of deep conversation, where people trade the contents of their iron boxes and find a temporary spiritual connection through validation and empathy. So, opening that box and talking is the first step most people take to get closer. And I've blocked you at that step, dead in your tracks, demanding you pay a price. You paid the price I wanted to see, and now that you've paid it once, the next payment becomes that much easier. After all, you've already paid once, right? Skylar understood the theory. Leo had laid it all out with meticulous detail. Did you figure all this out on your own? Mostly, but the core concept came from my boss. What's the core concept? See yourself as valuable. That's the prerequisite for not failing in a relationship. If you can't learn it, just put yourself in my shoes. I'm a host. I do this for money. Every single one of my actions has to be based on a financial transaction. When you start putting a price on your own actions, you'll naturally learn to value yourself. Leo's expression was blank as he said this. It felt less like a host and a client and more like a professional training session. But Skylar wasn't here for a lesson. She was here to understand Leo. But Leo, I think you're a very emotional person. This kind of numb, calculated logic doesn't seem to fit you. What makes you think I'm emotional? Would someone who wasn't emotional be so supportive of their ex-girlfriend? My appeal comes entirely from your imagination. It's a skill I use to get money from clients. No, it's not. Skylar stood in front of the ATM, hands on her hips, her voice rising. Don't lie to me. If you were really that numb, you could have easily scammed that $6,000 out of me. Didn't I just do that? But you're also telling me to stay away. Like a detective having a sudden epiphany, Skylar latched onto a key detail. Leo, you've definitely been through something. It's like in the movies, where a cop only learns not to be a reckless hothead after his partner dies. Stop fantasizing. I'm a client, and the client has a question. You have to answer it seriously. Skylar whispered, grabbing his ear, refusing to let go until she got an answer. All right, stop it. I'll talk. Leo sighed, a hint of resignation in his voice. He didn't try to hide it. I married someone in a small village up north. What? A married host? How scandalous. It's not what you think. Anyway, I might have caught feelings. This is so juicy. What else? Skylar's heart was pounding. This $6,000 was totally worth it. Where else could you hear a story this bizarre? At first, my attitude toward her was the same as it is with you. Just about making money, using all sorts of tactics to pull her in, but you started to not want her money, right? And that was my mistake. Trying to have it both ways means you end up with nothing. Leo looked up at the sky, as if lost in thought. I finally understand the rules of the lounge. I finally get why the veteran hosts are all so numb when it comes to love. Don't be so hard on yourself. You're a naturally talented host, at best. You're not an experienced one yet. Skylar patted his back like a supportive friend. Then, she asked softly, so, the reason you keep telling me to leave, is it because you don't want to take my money, either? Why are you projecting? It has to be. You think I'm smart and cute and sharp and fun, so you feel bad taking my money. But I'm taking your money, he said, giving her an annoyed look. Let me guess. You're afraid that if this goes on, you'll catch feelings again, so you're putting on this whole act. I don't want to think about relationships anymore. I'm out here to make money. But Leo, look me in the eyes and say that. Skylar's big, bright eyes stared him down as she hopped back and forth in front of him, swaying like a smiling weeble-wobble. She playfully quoted a classic, dramatic movie line. Are you sure you never had feelings for me? Leo's expression shifted from an eye roll to exasperation, and finally, to a resigned smile. In front of the ATM, where a financial transaction was about to take place, the mood suddenly turned lighthearted. Behind every rule at the Cypress Lounge was an unspeakable, tragic story. And there wasn't a single proverb that came from nowhere. The rookie can sometimes land a lucky punch on the master. The master manipulator, trying so hard to become numb, couldn't stand up to Skylar's relentless, honest persistence. The free-spirited wind had started to rustle the leaves of the unfeeling tree. Leo, thank you so much for telling me all this. You're welcome. But how do you know this wasn't all just a story I made up to win your sympathy? It doesn't matter. This is all the money I have for now, but I can save up more and come see you again. Skylar didn't see the problem. She got to be happy Leo got paid. Everyone got what they wanted. But Leo just sighed. People like you. Your money is hard to earn. What do you mean? My money is the easiest money there is. Because a huge part of what makes the lounge so addictive is guilt. a generalized guilt. The most common transactions of the lounge are impulsive or based on deep secrets, which means a lot of clients feel regret after they leave. And that regret, that guilt, is the core of the addiction. The basic logic of completing an action is idea to action to positive feedback. But when that positive feedback is replaced by guilt, you've performed an action, but the emptiness inside you hasn't been filled. Your actions didn't lead to a positive outcome, but you've already invested a significant cost. He continued, his voice low and clinical. From an outside perspective, a place like the lounge, where the lines between romance and business are blurred, will always be labeled as negative. The moment you walk in, you're accompanied by an inherent sense of guilt. It has nothing to do with how shameless you are as a person. It's a societal guilt. It's like, you can be an adult with spending power who loves clubbing, but you're still aware that a nightclub isn't exactly a wholesome place. It's a completely different logic from going to a restaurant. At a restaurant, once you're full, you stop eating. You're satisfied. But that part of you that's never satisfied is what the hosts at the lounge prey on. Because the most intoxicating part of any romantic dynamic is the intermittent reward. When you spend money at the lounge, you have no idea what kind of reward you'll get for that payment. The ambiguity is what's so alluring, and what's alluring is also what's dangerous. So the lounge itself is a cursed place. Clients come because they're empty, and the uncertainty of the reward gets them hooked. But when you leave, you realize that original emptiness was never filled. So you come back. It's a vicious cycle for any client. But for the lounge, it's the secret to making money. Skylar thought Leo was being incredibly diligent. He was explaining it all as if she were about to open a host club of her own. But she wasn't. So what was he doing? Leo, are you just venting to me? The service you requested was for me to tell you what's on my mind, wasn't it? You were just talking to me, Skylar said, a huge smile spreading across her face. She'd succeeded. This $6,000 was the best money she'd ever spent. In her eyes, Leo was no longer a master manipulator, but an inexperienced host, struggling with the emotional fallout of getting too close to a client. Leo, I think I get it. Your professional ethics and your emotional side are at war with each other, right? Maybe. I don't know. Leo sighed softly, not blaming anyone or wallowing in self-pity. He just leaned against the wall, staring into the distance without a word. The passing pedestrians on the street, the bright, glaring red sign of the bank overhead, the man's straight posture and his distant, lost eyes. It was the perfect picture of beautiful brokenness. In today's world, a man showing weakness is practically a cardinal sin. So this vulnerability, not overt but just barely visible, was devastatingly effective. A genius host, struggling because he'd caught feelings. It was the kind of character that would be a massive hit in a prestige drama. He was simultaneously critiquing the toxic, addictive business model of the lounge while his eyes reflected a war between emotion and reason. If you wanted to overanalyze it, you could even see it as the quiet rebellion of a lone man against a materialistic society, a search for sincerity in a world of indulgence. No matter how you looked at it, you saw a man with a story. You might not like a character like that, but the market loves it. And in Skylar's eyes, it all boiled down to one thought. If I don't save him, who will? Leo, you need to take care of yourself. Maybe you should see a therapist. I see one every week. Oh, the soft spot in Skylar's heart grew a little bigger. Saying something yourself versus having someone ask is a world of difference. If you go around announcing, I have mental health issues, I see a therapist, most women would just see you as melodramatic. Why should they invest their energy into empathizing with you? But if you keep it to yourself and only mention it casually when someone asks, the impact increases tenfold. Leo, I'm still going to save up money to come talk with you. Keep the money for yourself. We should probably see less of each other from now on. No way. What if you get all bottled up and it makes you sick? Then you don't have to pay next time you want to talk. Leo leaned against the wall, his voice soft. It's not right for you to pay me just to listen to you talk. As he spoke, he checked the time, then handed the debit card back to Skylar. He patted her on the head gently. This one's on the house. Thanks for listening. Wait. And just like that, Leo was gone. He didn't say another word, leaving only a lonely silhouette at the street corner. Late that night, Skylar tossed and turned in her bed. She was writing in her journal. Normal people don't keep journals, and neither did she, usually. She only wrote when she felt something was worth remembering. The good news was she felt like she was doing interesting things every day. The bad news was she had no idea how to write about today. Under the warm glow of her desk lamp, the young woman was bundled in fuzzy pajamas, her small feet kicking aimlessly in the air, a perfect reflection of her current state of mind. How was she supposed to write this? A simple, factual account? Today, I finally broke through a host of fences and saw a side of him no one else sees. And he didn't even charge me? But that didn't feel right. It failed to capture the blurry, complex emotions she was feeling. Getting to know Leo was like reading a difficult, fascinating book. She started to recall the feeling he gave her. He wasn't a fully formed person in her mind, but a series of moments that struck her to the core, making her instinctively want to uncover his past. It was magical. His eyes were like a safe harbor. But what truly invaded your heart was the weight of his history. Is this what all men are like? Is this what it feels like to be with a man? If falling in love means building a relationship with someone like him, then that actually sounds pretty interesting. At her desk, Skylar alternated between crying and laughing. Outside the door, her father and mother were listening, whispering to each other. Our daughter's at that age. It's time for her to start dating. We raised a good kid. I'm sure she has excellent taste in men. I trust her. Honey, your parenting philosophy was right all along. If we just give her the freedom to choose, she'll never be easily swayed by some bad boy. The two of them stood in the hallway, giving each other a thumbs up, congratulating themselves on their years of successful parenting. They had no idea that inside the room, their daughter was quietly using a calculator, meticulously planning her budget. She had fallen for one of the oldest traps in history, the fantasy of saving the fallen woman, or in this case, the fallen man. After finishing her calculations, Skylar quietly wrote in her journal, "I'm going to save him." Skylar was a woman of action. Operation Save Private Leo began at that very moment. In the core of this plan, money. She was going to use a lot of money to show Leo, your instincts are right. Be yourself. Don't become numb. You can still make money by being who you are. Since he couldn't bring himself to take her money, afraid it would complicate things if they caught feelings, then his kindness deserved to be rewarded. So, Skylar spent the day running all over town, doing the same thing at every stop. I'd like to cancel my membership. Her spa membership, her gym membership, her pool membership. She had never once worried about money, because there was always someone else to pay. She never cared how much cash she had on hand. Now she cared, but it all had to be done in secret. Her family couldn't know about these expenses. The first step for a naive girl falling for a bad boy is always so predictable: keeping secrets from her parents. A change in one's daily life is a turning point. Skylar's young life had been full of rich experiences, but she was now turning her back on all of it, focusing everything on a single mission. By the time she found Leo again at the campus gate to tell him about her new life, he was struck completely silent. It was another late night. Leo had just gotten off work, and Skylar hadn't gone back to her dorm. Skylar, do you have any idea how many stories on this earth end in tragedy because someone tried to rescue a person from the life? Who's the person from the life? Skylar asked, looking up at him blankly. She launched into her plan. We'll go to the Cypress Lounge, open an account, and deposit all this money to boost your numbers. You're just dropping everything else. You should always focus on doing one thing right, she said, nodding enthusiastically. It felt right to her. But Leo, sitting across from her, grew quieter and quieter, his expression complex. Skylar, do you realize that what you're doing right now is also exactly what I expected? Well, you're a master, of course you knew. What I mean is, our conversation at the bank the other day was also part of my plan. I wasn't just after that $6,000. I want more. Everything I told you is a carefully crafted persona designed to get you to give me more money. Leo watched her with a detached curiosity. So, how do you feel hearing that? Relieved. Skylar patted her chest, looking as if she'd just survived a near-death experience. Seeing this, Leo popped a wonton into his mouth and swallowed it whole before asking, "Relieved that you haven't given me the money yet. Relieved that I have this much money to give." Hiss. Leo made a strange noise, whether from the hot soup or something else. It was hard to tell. He fumbled, knocking his spoon and bowl to the ground with a loud clatter. Leo, you're such a klutz. Skylar, you're the klutz. He looked at her as if she were an alien, his voice agitated. Did you not hear what I just said? Everything I've done was to empty your pockets. Do you have any idea what you're doing right now? You're not just giving your savings to a man you barely know. You're secretly reallocating funds meant for other things. How is that any different from embezzling company funds to tip a live streamer? Because I want to. What exactly do you want? I don't want you to become numb to your feelings, like those older hosts at the lounge. Do we know each other? Do we have some deep, profound connection? Are you my family? Are we related by blood? We're none of those things, but I just want to do it. Not everything in life needs a reason. As Skylar saw it, Leo's composure had cracked. His breakdown consisted of sitting at the table in silence, slowly eating a saucer of peanuts. When he finished, the breakdown was over. Leo, you're struggling, aren't you? The story about the village wasn't a lie. You're genuinely conflicted between your rational side and your emotional side. It's a conflict that all the veteran hosts have gone through, and their choices have given you a blueprint. You think that to make money, you can't have it both ways, so you've chosen to become numb, to give up on feeling. It's the only way you can keep doing this job. But I don't want that for you. I just think you should be yourself. Having said her piece, Skylar said no more. She placed a debit card on the table. This is the extra money I scraped together. Consider it compensation for all the emotional distress I've caused you lately. Keep being you, Leo. Stay sharp. Don't go numb. Everyone is just a passing traveler in your life. Skylar understood that. She wasn't looking for anything in return. She was just perceptive enough to have sensed his internal struggle over the past few days. Leo might have thought he was hiding it well, but to an outsider, it was painfully obvious. If you want my money, why do you keep telling me all this? His conflict was like a hand reaching out, only to hesitate at the last second. No one else cared about the psychological toll Leo's job was taking on him. He couldn't even explain the conflict to himself. But by chance, a warm-hearted young woman had noticed. Fate was a funny thing. Now, Skylar had done what she set out to do. She walked over to the owner, paid the bill, and turned to wave goodbye. Wait, what is it? Take your money back. See, Leo, this is the choice you're making. Skylar beamed, thrilled that she was saving his soul from numbness. Service first, payment later, Leo said slowly from his seat. You'll provide a service for me? Really? Skylar plopped back down on the stool, grinning as she stated her request. Leo, I think it would be really interesting to date you. Could you give me a relationship trial? A relationship trial was child's play for Leo. He nodded without a shred of hesitation. The lounge offered services far more complicated than that. This was practically conservative. But I have to be clear up front. I'm currently being kept by someone, so I'm going to be extremely busy. I get it. So I won't be able to contact you all the time. In fact, there will be long periods where I'm completely unreachable, and there will be times when it's fine. If you're busy, I'll do my own thing. When you're free, you can find me. I also need to mention that I have a girlfriend. I know. Skylar nodded like a bobblehead. None of that mattered to her. The ultimate goal of dating is to become a couple, maybe even get married. But Skylar didn't care about the outcome. It was like climbing a mountain. For some, the goal is to reach the summit, snap a triumphant photo, and post it with a dramatic caption. In that sense, there's not much difference between hiking and taking the cable car. But for others, the goal is to enjoy the journey. For them, the purpose of climbing isn't reaching the top. It's the act of climbing itself. The phrase enjoy the process sounds profound, a romantic ideal. But to truly live, it requires a wealth of experience. The person who rushes to the summit to take a photo isn't necessarily shallow. They might be a student who saved up for a vacation, or a 9-to-5er who can only travel on packed holidays. When you've gone through so much just to get there, why not just check the box and get the picture? To develop a personality like Skylar's required an immense investment. It's human nature to want a good outcome. The only people who can truly stop caring about the result are those who have achieved good results so many times that they've grown tired of it. Only then do they shift their focus to the process. Skylar, you and my therapist are polar opposites. Leo marveled, a strange look in his eyes. There aren't many people out there with their kind of extreme tragic background, but there are even fewer with your kind of extreme happy one. Your therapist? You have that kind of relationship with her too. Skylar's curiosity was instantly piqued. This was what she was paying for. The world is only as big as the people you know, and Leo was a gateway to things she'd never seen, to people she'd never met. Is her life story really that tragic? It's pretty bad. I can't tell you the details, though. Client confidentiality. But why can't your therapist help you with your issues? First, she's not exactly stable herself. Second, when she's with me, she's not a doctor. Leo sighed softly, his expression still complicated. The whole scene was incredibly emo. A late-night wonton stand outside the university. A tired host just off his shift, sitting with a hint of melancholy, telling his private stories. A numb host talking about his feelings was the most lethal weapon in the arsenal, a specialty of the trade. It was probably a professional skill so deeply ingrained in Leo's bones that it was second nature, just as old doctors eventually become desensitized to life and death. That effortless projection of tragedy was enough to captivate any naive young woman. It was the perfect bait for a girl who knew nothing about love. That, of course, included Skylar. After staring at Leo's profile with stars in her eyes, Skylar decided to be direct. Leo, why don't you consider actually dating me? She was genuinely interested in him. She genuinely liked him. For a confident person, love really was that simple. If you like someone, you tell them. If you get rejected, you move on and find the next person who catches your eye. A repeating cycle of attraction and expression. But love also follows the law of conservation of energy. Someone who could truly capture her attention was obviously not going to be an easy conquest. Leo just waved his hand, equally direct. Catch feelings at your own risk. I could disappear from your life at any moment, but I've already caught feelings. What am I supposed to do when I can't stop thinking about you? Don't worry. When I decide to disappear, I have my ways. Skylar couldn't believe how cold he was being. Aren't we friends now? Aren't we close? How can you be like this? Leo, I'm not asking you to marry me, just to think about it. I think we'd be good together. Skylar's strategy was to say whatever was on her mind. But in Leo's eyes, it all led to one outcome. He got up to leave. All right, that's enough. The relationship trial starts now. When does it end? When the client is satisfied, of course. What if I'm never satisfied until I've won you over? It's normal to be unsatisfied. A host's job is to keep you hooked, to make you forever greedy, to never let you have enough. So we'll be together forever. If I have a way to keep you hooked, I also have a way to make you leave. How can you be like that? I thought I only had to pay when I was satisfied. Skylar stood at the wonton stand, watching his retreating back. Leo's final words drifted back to her. When you leave, you'll be satisfied. Skylar waited anxiously at home for days. This was the classic behavior of a girl with her first crush. Distracted, restless, occasionally breaking into a smile as she got lost in romantic daydreams. Skylar, are you okay? Are you sick or something? Willow stood by the bed, staring at her with a look of complete bewilderment. Skylar's behavior was genuinely bizarre, like a puppet moving in jerky, unnatural ways. When do you think Leo will ask me out on a date? Did Leo drug you? Willow pried her best friend's eyelids open, trying to use her traditional medicine knowledge to make a diagnosis. You look normal enough. You don't get it. This is the normal reaction of a girl falling in love. It was, indeed, hard to understand. A young woman's first love is usually shy and reserved. Few would be so bold as to openly admit they were falling head over heels. Leo just texted me. Skylar snatched her phone. The moment she saw the message, she froze, then let out a sharp squeal. Oh my God, this is so wild. What is it? Willow leaned in, confused. Leo has to take his client to the aquarium today, and he wants me to come meet him there for a secret date. He's going to be with his client, and on a date with you at the same time. The scenario was so scandalous that Willow's face started to flush. Skylar, do you hear yourself? That's basically cheating. How is it cheating? My relationship with him is a financial transaction, and his client's relationship with him is also a financial transaction. If we're going by moral standards, both his client and I are technically wronging his real girlfriend, Summer Lynn. Willow's face turned an even deeper shade of red. The plot just kept getting more and more twisted. For a girl with a strong moral compass, this was pure torture. Skylar, even if you want to go on a date, it should be one-on-one. You don't have to do it on the same day as his client. This just feels weird. But Leo doesn't have much time. Besides, this is what makes it exciting, right? Skylar sat on the edge of her bed, crossing her legs. It gives me the illusion that he's only with the client for the money, but I'm the one he truly loves. In a TV show, this would be the scene where the hero reluctantly gets engaged to the villainess, but secretly promises the heroine he'll only ever love her. Are you going to secretly get engaged to Leo behind the client's back? Why not? But a certain image must have popped into Willow's head, because from Skylar's perspective, the blush on her friend's face never faded. Willow, I'm just kidding. Why would I secretly get engaged to him? Skylar said, as she quickly threw on some clothes and pulled up a map to the aquarium. Skylar, I hope you don't do this. It's wrong, Willow said, trying to reason with her best friend. I know you like to have fun, but there are limits, right? I know. I'm heading out. Skylar, are you even listening to me? I'm listening. I just hope that when you find a boy you like, you can manage to not go crazy either. The Riverbend Aquarium. A young couple, or what looked like one, walked shoulder to shoulder through the main entrance. They looked like a couple, but a closer look revealed they weren't. For example, they never held hands, never hugged, never showed any physical affection. This was a clue Skylar picked up while spying on them from behind. He doesn't love the client. He doesn't. So far, Skylar knew of 3 women in his life: the village wife, the messed-up therapist, and the rich client. The first had caused Leo to question the boundaries between his job and his emotions, pushing him to learn the detached ways of the veteran hosts. Skylar's appearance had coincided perfectly with this crisis, and because of that, a bold idea had formed in her mind. This trip was the key to putting that idea into action. Skylar sat quietly behind Leo, watching the animal show. She had to admit, He was delivering a top-tier relationship experience, even if it was all in secret. "I'm in work mode right now, babe. I'm sorry." "It's okay," she texted back, her eyes crinkling into crescent moons at the word babe. It was so sweet. Throughout the show, Leo kept drinking water, using the excuse of going to the bathroom to run out and pat Skylar's head. "What are you feeling right now?" she asked him in a whisper. "I feel bad for you." "For me, I'm sorry I'm so busy with work that I don't have time to spend with you. That we have to do it like this. I'm sorry." "No way, Leo. Are you getting into character already?" Skylar stood in the middle of the marine life exhibit, clutching her stomach as she laughed. She was laughing at how seriously he was taking this. "You think this is funny?" Leo leaned against the wall outside the men's room, rubbing his face tiredly. "I thought it would just be a matter of earning 2 paychecks at once, but the reality is, the feelings are completely different." "How are they different?" "The client is work. You are life. These past few days at her place, I kept trying to find a chance to sneak out and see you, but I could never get away. This was the only way." "I'm sorry." It's okay. Seeing him like this, Skylar felt a surge of sympathy. "It's all right, Leo. I understand. So are you satisfied? You went through all this trouble just to see me." "Of course I'm satisfied, but I don't know when we'll see each other again. You have to trust that I'll find a way." "Okay, you don't have to give me the money yet. Here, take it. You were going to get it sooner or later anyway." Skylar once again pulled her debit card from her bag. But as she searched for it, she seemed to remember something and looked up, her voice trembling slightly. "Leo, will you see me again? I told you I will when I get the chance." "Will there really be another chance?" "There will be." Leo nodded firmly. But Skylar saw the hesitation in his eyes. He was running away from her. "Leo, you're running away from my feelings, aren't you? If you bring that up again, I'm leaving." "Leo, the only reason you run from emotions is because you subconsciously believe that love comes at a price." Skylar moved behind him, her voice a soft whisper. "Leo, do you agree with this statement? The moment you feel happiness, the countdown to sadness begins." "Where did you get that line?" "I saw it online, but that's not the point." Skylar spoke carefully. "Isn't it true that whether it was the village wife, the therapist, or Summer Lynn, they all made you feel like you were paying a heavy price? Accepting the therapist meant accepting her instability. Accepting the village wife meant facing the choice between love and money for a host. And the price for Summer Lynn goes without saying." Leo stood silently under the octopus sculpture. "A relationship with you would have a price, too. I admit, no relationship is free. So I decided, we're not going to date." Skylar smiled and handed her phone to a passerby. She stood in front of the aquarium glass, the blue light reflecting on her pale face as a hammerhead shark swam slowly overhead, casting a shadow. The Riverbend Aquarium had a giant statue of Poseidon, his trident held high and majestic, though there was a certain divine comedy to it whenever a sea turtle swam past his eyes. Leo and Skylar squeezed out of the crowd, their oversized jackets giving them a youthful air, and posed for a picture together. This was Skylar's idea. Under the watchful eye of an ancient god in a blue-lit ocean, she wanted to make a vow. They would no longer be confined by the limits of a relationship. They wouldn't be lovers for a moment. They would be friends forever. This is where my part of the story ends. Back in the living room of Skylar's family mansion, Leo stood up and fell silent. The most important part of being friends is respecting the other person's wishes, which is why I'm leaving tomorrow without telling you. Do you need me to see you off? I don't want a sappy, tearful goodbye." Skylar said with a laugh. Sunlight flooded through the window, spreading evenly across the cream-colored floor. The baby's breath on the bookshelf swayed gently, just like the smile on her lips. Parting ways when you're young doesn't feel like a ton of bricks on your chest. It doesn't feel like the next time you'll speak your heart will be to an epitaph on a tombstone. Young goodbyes are full of arrogant hope, the promise that you'll meet again at a higher place. "Leo, what's your future going to look like?" "Work at the Miller Group during the day, manage the Cypress Lounge at night." Leo had no business experience, not even the fancy overseas degree that Ethan had. Starting in a high-level position was out of the question. It wasn't that others wouldn't allow it. He simply wasn't qualified. This wasn't a game. He had to start from the bottom and learn. Even by society's standards, a 20-year-old's life was just beginning. He had so much to learn. "I guess I'll have to get used to the 9-to-5 grind." Aside from the lounge, Leo had never held a proper, formal job. If he wanted to learn, he had to start from scratch. He was already preparing himself for a life of carrying a briefcase to an office. But he was content. Compared to the masses in the sprawling city, he didn't have to worry about a place to live, his future, or even finding a wife. He was already incredibly lucky. "I'm going to find my guide on an island first. Then my first stop is Tanzania. I want to see Mount Kilimanjaro. Why there first? It's on the equator. I've only ever seen the equator in geography books. Isn't it supposed to be hot there? Of course. Don't tell me you forgot your middle school geography. Skylar laughed. I've got it all planned out. I'm going to be an animal photographer while I travel and shoot vlogs. Maybe I'll become a huge travel influencer. You know, with your looks, you'd kill it no matter what you did. Looks alone won't win the game, but pair them with something else, and it's a killer combo. The ultimate cheat code for building a brand. You too, retired host and secret heir to a fortune, goes undercover in the family business. It sounds like the plot of a power fantasy novel. Skylar giggled, kneading his shoulders. They talked like that for the whole afternoon. Skylar insisted Leo had to live out a classic wish fulfillment trope. Like you get in the elevator and accidentally spill coffee on some fat, abusive boss. He turns around and slaps you, but you swallow your pride for the sake of the company. The boss gets even worse, making your life hell, until one day, at a board meeting, a major shareholder accidentally reveals your identity. The fat boss bursts into tears, gets on his knees, and begs, "Young master, I was blind to not recognize your greatness." Skylar was laughing so hard she was practically rolling on the bed, clutching her stomach. Leo said, "That would never work. No matter how well I hide my identity, the second I walk into that building for orientation, every single manager will get a memo that the prince has arrived. The entire Miller family has eyes on me." Skylar thought about it and realized he was right. She pulled out her phone, opened TikTok, and immediately started demanding a refund from customer service. Her reason, "You're treating me like an idiot." Leo added, "With your intelligence, you should definitely avoid Egypt. I hear it's full of scammers." "Really? It's fine, I'll have a guide. Still, be careful. Don't get scammed out of your money and virtue. My money I don't care about. But as for my virtue..." Skylar's voice trailed off. She fell silent and looked down at her chest. Then she burst into tears. "Wah, keep it down. If your dad hears you, he's going to come after me with a knife." "Leo, do you think I should go to Korea and get some work done?" "Don't. You'll be flying all over the world. What if one day on a plane they just, 'Pop, can't you wish me something nice for once?'" Skylar, her face streaked with tears, launched herself at him. She expertly locked him in a chokehold from behind, pulling him onto the bed and wrapping her legs around him like a koala. She was on the bottom, with Leo pinned on his back at the edge of the bed. "That's what you get for talking nonsense. You're crushing me. Don't you know your airbags are defective?" "You said it again." Skylar gritted her teeth, huffing as she tightened her grip. Her nose was so close to his ear. "Leo, why aren't you a pervert at all?" "Of course I'm a pervert. Then why aren't you into me? Isn't it common knowledge that I have a thing for limited edition skins?" "Hee hee, I came prepared. I have a limited edition skin too." Skylar squirmed out from under him and rummaged through her closet, pulling out a large package. She then dashed into the bathroom to change. "What kind of outfit did you get? It'll definitely blow your mind." He had to admit, he was intrigued. An image even popped into his head. When it came to this sort of thing, Leo had a natural talent. A rich girl like Skylar, born with a silver spoon, secretly changing into a little devil costume in her own bedroom while her parents were away, brandishing a whip. And there was a high probability that her parents were trying to eavesdrop outside the door at that very moment. The whole scene had a very specific, foreign film vibe. The thought was getting a little out of hand. With that image in mind, Leo heard the bathroom doorknob turn. He looked up, full of anticipation, and saw a green figure hop out of the doorway. "Who told you a giant frog costume was a limited edition skin? Why can't a giant frog be a limited edition skin?" Skylar's voice was muffled, her tone dripping with contempt for his lack of taste. She clearly had more to say on the matter. "When it comes to being sexy, I can't compete with Peyton. For being kinky, I'll never beat Dr. Shaw. And in a pure body competition, I lose to Isabella. So you chose to be abstract." Leo finally burst out laughing. He looked at the girl in the frog mascot head and laughed until tears streamed down his face. "See, Leo, I'm the one who can make you the happiest, right? And isn't being happy the whole point of all that sexy stuff anyway? That's a unique interpretation." "Hee, Leo, I know you actually want to travel the world with me. Why the sudden change in topic?" Skylar waddled toward him in the frog's suit, a playful grin on her face. "Leo, I'll always be the one who understands you best. But I can also never change you, as long as you know that. So, do you know why I want to go to Mount Kilimanjaro?" "There's a deeper meaning. Because the heat of the equator has never melted the snows of Kilimanjaro." "I don't get it. Are you saying I'm a block of ice and you can't melt me?" "No. It means the equator and the snows of Kilimanjaro can coexist. And so can we, forever, as good friends." "Feel you, huh? Interesting. It was almost 3 in the morning by the time Leo got home. Time always flew when he was with Skylar. But he had to go. He couldn't actually stay the night, could he? Her father, Stephen, really would come after him with a knife. The parting itself wasn't a big deal. But just before he left, Skylar told him a little secret. Actually, the whole Summer Lynn pregnancy thing was a spur-of-the-moment idea. I had just heard she wasn't feeling well, so I thought, why not let her play up a bit? Maybe it could trick you into leaving with her. That was pretty devious of you. Leo didn't take it to heart. Anyone knew it was an impossible plan. Forget the fact that Summer herself was against it, constantly telling him she wasn't pregnant. A lie like that is impossible to maintain. This wasn't some pre-modern era. A quick trip to the hospital would reveal the truth. Still, Leo felt a pang of something. As he walked out the Reed's front door, he let out a deep sigh, still trying to decide who to choose. I'm trying to decide on my life. Leo found life's experiences to be endlessly strange. He suddenly realized that the young women and the mature women represented two entirely different ways of life. Though they each had their own personalities, their ways of thinking and their interests were all different. But choosing the mature women represented choosing a mature life. For someone like Peyton, the word mistress would be incomprehensible in a young person's world. Love is love, and not love is not love. But in the world of adults, it didn't seem so hard to accept. The word pet was even more outrageously scandalous, the kind of gossip that would require a subscription fee to read online. But in the adult world, how many people are unknowingly tamed into pets? It's just a matter of whether someone calls it out. As for his rival, Isabella, love didn't even seem to be part of the equation. Why would you love your rival? But in life, if you say you'll love your partner forever, you're probably acting. If you say you'll fight them forever, that's a bond you can count on. Either way, you live a life, don't you? And Leo himself would follow that path. He would join the Miller Group, start from the bottom, and learn through trial and error. Among his peers, he was doing well. All he needed was time to learn, to defeat those who had been in the game far longer. Perhaps in 10 years, he could stand at the pinnacle of Riverbend society, a major player. A 30-year-old titan of industry is not only young, but also formidable. This was the life he would lead if he stayed. Though there would be hardships, the basic framework was clear. For Leo, this was his shore, his escape from the life of a host to that of a wealthy heir. He had earned it with a life-or-death car crash. It was an inspiring story by any measure. If this were his only option, he would simply walk the path. But it wasn't his only option. The mountain calls to the man, and the lotus calls to the fish. If the mature women represented realism, then the young women were pure romanticism. A fiancé willing to join a convent for you. A celebrity childhood sweetheart who stood by you for 12 years. A soulmate who fell from the sky like the sun. You can find a mistress if you work hard and make money. You can find a pet if you play your cards right. You can find a rival if you're competitive enough. Because those things exist in the real world. But the three young women? Try finding even one of them. And what was even more romantic was what they were about to do. They would take you on a grand adventure. You wouldn't know what tomorrow would bring, only that you would forever be on the road. And when you wanted to stop and rest, the place you would go was just as romantic, a Taoist sanctuary. Who goes to a sanctuary to rest? So this was the choice between idealism and realism. Which way of life to choose? Most people in Leo's position would face this choice. But Leo had already tested it for everyone. Your life script is already written. Before his amnesia, he was already struggling in the mire of reality. Fate was that modified Hummer, and he, on his beat-up e-scooter, had slammed right into it, trying to live an ideal life. Looking back now, it was all water under the bridge. Leo was still, as always, making the practical choice. Because a person accustomed to struggling in the mud of reality will never recklessly chase a fleeting ideal. Leo had accepted the mature women. He had made his choice. He realized that a person can never truly live an ideal life. The mountain calls to the man, the lotus calls to the fish. Leo was just as conflicted as any normal person, as evidenced by his recent train of thought. But his greatest strength was his willingness to pay the price for his choices. A choice made is a choice made, and the price was regret. A regret composed of wondrous experiences and deep bonds. If sadness is the pain of a battering ram, regret is the ache in an old knee joint on a rainy day. Leo suddenly felt a huge stone shifting in his mind. With every step, he could almost hear a faint cracking sound. Leo, why are you walking so unsteadily? My power core is about to rupture. You're what? Are you talking about? Down there, when the core breaks, I'll ascend to the next tier. My soul will be able to leave my body. Leo joked, referencing some obscure fantasy game. Skylar was completely lost. What are you talking about? Ha 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 ha. It's nothing. Leo threw his head back and laughed, waving his hand as he walked away. Skylar, still worried, chased after him for a moment. Leo, are you okay? Of course I'm okay, but you don't seem normal. It's fine. I have to go say goodbye to Summer, anyway. You scared me. I thought you were actually leveling up or something. Bye. Don't say bye. And don't you dare come to the airport to see me off tomorrow. In the moonlight, Skylar toyed with the hair on her shoulder, a playful smile on her face. Leo, we'll definitely see each other again. Don't say bye. Okay. Leo, will you miss me when I'm gone? I will. Liar. With all those vixens you have at home, how could you possibly have time to miss me? I'm really grateful to you, Skylar, Leo said, standing in the moonlight, smiling at this sudden surprise that had entered his life. You're welcome. Remember to experience what it's like to be a wage slave before you become a capitalist, so you don't exploit your workers. Skylar stood outside her family's large iron gate, as always. She had grown up, too. She didn't need to climb the wall to sneak out at 3 in the morning anymore. The moonlight wrapped around her hair, her smile like a silent prayer for a better tomorrow. Life is full of unexpected surprises, appearing like comets that approach quickly and then disappear. They ask for nothing in return, only bringing you a bit of beauty and help. Since their arrival costs you nothing, their departure is something you can never prevent. Balance is the eternal law. So Leo didn't want to frame this relationship in a pessimistic way. Why dwell on the pain? He just smiled and waved. No goodbye. None was needed. But in his heart, he said it. My whole life has been mud. Thank you for being my flower, if only for a time. It was 3 in the morning, but Leo felt that no matter how late, he had to say goodbye to Summer Lynn. He was about to text her when he saw he had several missed calls. They were from her. Hello, Summer. You're still up? Are you coming home tonight? Yeah. Good. There's something I want to talk to you about. I'll wait for you at your place. Okay. You've been waiting for me this whole time. Leo pushed open the door to find Summer Lynn sitting on the sofa. She was alone, quiet. Where's my mom? It's 3 in the morning. I'm not exactly a stranger, so I told your mom she didn't have to stay up with me. Aren't you feeling unwell? Why didn't you go lie down in my room? Leo said it naturally, but Summer's reply made him pause. It wouldn't be right for me to go into your room without you. Oh, right. A strange sense of distance rose between them, an invisible wall. It was unfamiliar to Leo. Even with his memory gone from the moment he first heard her name, the moment he first saw her, they had been so familiar. Even from the perspective of people like his mother or Summers, who had watched them grow up, their dynamic had never changed. It was the same before his amnesia, and it was the same after. One talked, one listened. The memory loss had separated them, but it hadn't changed the core of their relationship. Some things are carved into your bones like a scar on a vine. I'm sure you had fun with Skylar, but don't go too crazy. I'm just traveling with her for a bit. My goal is to find a city I like and settle down. If you have any trouble with visas or residency, make sure you call me. Leo had never lived abroad, never even left the country. It was all he could think of to offer. Okay. It was hard to make out Summer's expression in the dim light. She had a star's face, the kind of features that are made for the camera. A high facial fold degree, they called it. Among all the women, Isabella and Summer were the most photogenic. Isabella had her mixed race advantage, with her high nose bridge and large eyes. Summer was pure genetic luck. Celebrity fashion is always on the cutting edge, but that often means it's not suitable for everyday wear. So when she was in full makeup and designer clothes, she looked like someone who had stepped out of a movie screen and into your life. But now, she sat on the sofa, looking exhausted, her hair falling loosely around her face. She looked up at Leo at a loss for words. Are there still stories you haven't told me? Too many. Tell me. I could never finish. Summer shook her head. She didn't know how to narrate a story that spanned nearly a decade. I just came to say goodbye. I know your girlfriends probably don't care much about me, but I don't think it's right to keep things so ambiguous, especially since you'll be getting married and having kids one day. I've never wanted to get married or have kids, have I? Leo leaned back on the sofa, a wave of comfort washing over him. He was a person who was always on guard, no matter where he was. Only here, in this safe house in Riverbend Estates, could he let down his defenses. No. So I'm sorry, Leo. I used to be so afraid of being abandoned that in moments when I should have been caring about you, I was foolishly suspicious instead. It's all in the past. Honestly, Leo didn't care about any of that anymore. He could even look back on it and laugh. That was the proof of growth. Not the balance in your bank account or how tall you'd gotten, but when you could remember the past with peace. Why didn't I want to get married? Summer didn't answer directly. Instead, she asked a new question. Leo, do you remember your favorite song? I like a lot of music. The clients at the lounge know everything. Vaporwave, jazz rock. The one song you copied the lyrics for in a notebook when you were a kid. You even posted on your AIM profile. Hang on, let me look. Leo hadn't logged into his old AIM account in years, but he found the idea of digging through his past strangely appealing. Never mind. Just look at my profile. Leo picked up his phone, then put it down again. It wasn't that he didn't want to look. He'd forgotten the password. Summer didn't say anything. She just opened her phone, went to AM, and in her buddy list, found the one and only contact. Wait, what's my screen name? Leo asked, having discovered something new. Umbrella. Summer tilted her head, not explaining. It was more like a test. Luckily, Leo passed. I remember. Your screen name was Little Rain, and I was Little Rain's umbrella. You remember? A clear note of joy was in her voice. No, Isabella told me about it when she was telling me stories. Summer fell silent. She navigated to Leo's old profile page. It was full of posts, all single sentences, posted every few days. Forgive me for my wild and freedom-loving life. Leo's face flushed red. It was a cringe-worthy moment that transcended time. He couldn't imagine his younger, deeply dramatic self, shouting about his untamable free spirit every day. And his favorite song, of course, was revealed. The first post on his profile was a link to Bon Jovi's Wanted Dead or Alive. Looks like I really did love freedom back then. So I always knew, Leo. I knew that one day I wouldn't be able to hold on to you, Summer said softly, looking up at the ceiling. Among all the kids in this neighborhood, you were the brightest. Among all the students at school, you were still the brightest. When you grew up and started working at the lounge, you became the brightest one there, too. When I realized that, I started thinking I shouldn't just be the girl trailing behind you, that I should find another way to exist by your side. But I overestimated myself, and that change just became a burden to you. So I should have realized long ago that I could never tie you down. Because without me, you can still live a very happy life. But without you, there's no happiness for me. I'm so sorry it took me this long to realize that. So please, forgive me for all my past actions. I'm sorry. In the dim room, Summer whispered the words she had been preparing for so long. Faced with them, Leo didn't know what to say. He was happy she had found clarity, that she could start a new life. Summer, there's no need to talk about forgiveness. After almost 10 years together, you must have done so much for me. So there's nothing to forgive. In fact, I should thank you. Thank you for being with me for so long. Leo didn't know if he was doing the right thing, but he was taking responsibility for his choices. He was staying in Riverbend to be responsible for his life and the women he loved. So let those with dreams go and choose their own lives. It's good to finally put a proper end to this long story, Leo said, his laughter breaking the heavy silence. Summer hummed in agreement. She patted her legs and then gestured for Leo to open his phone. You picked up your phone and put it down. You forgot your AIM password, didn't you? You caught me. The phone number linked to it is long gone. I'll have to go through the recovery process later. You don't have to. I know it. What is it? Summerlin, 521. Leo froze, looking into her eyes. And what's yours? Leo Miller, 521. Sometimes, especially late at night, you can understand all the logic in the world, but a strange emotion will still well up inside you, making you teeter on the edge of tears. Leo stared at the ceiling, tensing his facial muscles, trying to control the sudden wave of emotion. He was an adult. He could control it. But a single thought kept echoing in his mind. Our shared passwords were the digital promise rings of our generation. Summer, I don't think you should give up your career. It was the only thing Leo could think to say, but he'd been wanting to say it for a long time. If she had fought so hard for it, why give it all up now that she had finally made it? When you achieve one goal, you move on to the next. So your next goal is just to do nothing. Leo wasn't against taking a break, but it just seemed so strange for Summer. She wasn't like Willow. Willow was the kind of person who could happily spend a year and a half in a small house by a lake with a vegetable garden and a couple of pets. The only game Willow had ever played was Stardew Valley. She truly had the patience and could immerse herself in a quiet life. But Summer was different. Exactly how she was different, Leo couldn't quite put his finger on. He still couldn't form a complete picture of her personality. Summer, have we ever had a drink together? Just a casual drink for no reason. No. Want one? I've seen Leo's medical report. I do not believe a person with a severe psychological condition is qualified to be an heir. In a small courtyard on the Miller estate, empty except for a stone tea table in the center, a full assembly was gathered. The fence-sitters were all there, with Uncle Chester, their designated spokesman, leading the charge. There's no such thing as a bad nickname, and fence-sitters was a perfect fit. At the family dinner, Chester had been all for welcoming Leo back. Now, He was acting as if Leo had committed a mortal sin. Are you calling my son a psycho? It's written right here in black and white. Can you deny it? Are you calling my son a psycho? Frank Miller, Leo's uncle, sat on a stone bench with his legs crossed, a hostile look on his face. Old scars from the battle in Boston were still visible. Hearing Chester's words, he strode over and slammed his hand on the table. Chester flinched, but kept his composure. Frank, violence is pointless. My violence is for outsiders. I don't get involved in family feuds. Frank sneered, plopping himself down on the tea table, splashing water onto Chester's face. You're right, Chester. But besides Leo, who else is there? Chester pushed Frank off the table and waved Julian over. He spoke to Frank sternly. Julian has many advantages over Leo. Like what? A pristine resume. Bullshit. Pick any kid from the Miller family, and their resume is better than Leo's. That's a meaningless point. Of course, a kid from a rich family is going to have a better resume than a host. Is a resume important? It is, because whether Leo is capable or not is just your opinion. A resume is objective proof for everyone to see. The difference between subjective and objective. There was no arguing that. Frank waved his hand dismissively. What else? He's the right age. More bullshit. Julian is 30. Of course he's the right age. He said it, but Frank knew these were just excuses cooked up to justify a predetermined conclusion. The biggest difference between a family business and a regular corporation was the unity that came from blood ties. The family could decide things among themselves, for better or for worse. My nephew is not a psycho. Cut the crap. Frank, the situation is what it is. We have a candidate who better serves the family's interests. Why cling to Leo? We can always give it back to him after he's recovered. Easy for you to say. By then, you'll have cooked up some other fake report. Frank glanced at the medical file. It was the diagnosis from the hospital after Leo's accident. The biggest issue was the amnesia. It's just amnesia. What does that have to do with being the heir? Can you guarantee he won't have another bout of amnesia? You think amnesia is the flu? You get it once, and then you get it again. If there's a risk, we have to guard against it. The power struggles between factions were mostly about seizing the moral high ground. Everyone was out for their own gain, but no one could just come out and say it. That would be too crass. All the stated reasons had to be noble, for the good of the family, for the less fortunate. Never for oneself, because whoever wins public support wins. Frank, having navigated family politics for years, knew this well. He wisely chose to shut his mouth, because at the gate, wrapped in a heavy coat, his brother, Rick Miller, had just walked in. As the most inscrutable member of the Miller family, Rick Miller made a grand entrance and immediately put on a show. Someone bring out the high-potency supplements for my dear elder cousins. Uncle Chester shot him a wary look. Rick, what is this? My dear cousins are all getting on in years, Rick said, his voice dripping with mock concern. Staying up this late for a meeting must be terribly taxing. You need a little something to keep you going, don't you? We're old bones, another of the elders muttered. It doesn't matter if we kick the bucket. Oh, but it does, Rick countered smoothly. You have so much great work left to do. How could you possibly talk about dying? His words sent a chill down the spines of the fence-sitters gathered in the secluded lodge. They had chosen this remote location, summoning Frank Miller for a late-night chat over tea, for one reason: to avoid Rick. They wanted a private meeting, one where they could apply pressure. Their goal was simple. Frank, Rick said, turning to his brother with a placid smile. What were these old gentlemen saying to you all night? These old bastards were calling Leo a psychopath. Rick had pronounced the word gentleman with such a deliberate, hollow tone that it left a gaping hole for Frank to fill. The answer to the fill-in-the-blank was, of course, bastards. Everyone in the room understood. It was how the two brothers had insulted people since they were kids. Rick was the educated one, his language always impeccably civil. He never uttered a curse word. But everyone knew about educated men like him. His mouth was clean, but his mind was filthy. Frank, on the other hand, loved the catharsis of a good cussing out, but always ran out of material. The two had formed a perfect partnership, inventing their fill-in-the-blank method of insults. It was the fusion of Rick's dark creativity and Frank's raw vulgarity, a perfect verbal bomber squadron. All Frank had to do was let his hindbrain take over and spit out the first absurd thing that came to mind. Cursing was an art form, after all. Just screaming profanities was monotonous and made you sound like you were having a powerless tantrum. But this was different. Frank, how could you say our dear cousins are bastards? Rick prompted, his eyes twinkling. Then what are they? Look at Uncle Chester. He looks just like A when he tries to flirt with that widow down the street, and she had to hire just to get his off her prize-winning petunias. The moment the long, bracketed sentence hit Frank's ears, he felt a wave of pure, unadulterated inspiration. The true art of the insult wasn't just profanity. It was a surreal, transcendent combination of words that no sane mind could conjure, a three-sided blade that pierced both flesh and spirit. It was an art the so-called civilized could never grasp. Frank's muscle memory kicked in. Uncle Chester looks like a constipated bulldog trying to pass a pineapple. He was trying to flirt with that widow's prize sow, and she had to hire 4 farmhands to get your uncle's toupee untangled from its tail. It's not my Uncle Chester, a man whose grandchildren were in elementary school, was rendered speechless. How do you argue against something so baseless? Cultured men loved to debate, to dismantle an opponent's argument with logic and precedent. But this was pure weaponized chaos. It was an elegant, devastating release of emotion, completely devoid of reason, that ripped a man's dignity from him and left him standing alone. Every family has that one member who respects no rules, no elders, no decorum. Facing such a person, Chester was powerless. And with Rick's early arrival, he knew he had already lost. His plan had been simple: back Frank into a corner. In the Miller family's eyes, even an amnesiac Leo was functioning, even excelling. There was nothing concrete to attack. So, Chester's strategy was to viciously slander his son, to call him a lunatic, and provoke Frank into a violent outburst. Then he would have his ammunition. He could spin it. I merely mentioned Leo's past illness, and Frank resorted to violence. What is he hiding? Why won't he discuss this openly? He could use it to sow doubt, to hint that Leo had some secret, dangerous pathology. If that happened, not even Rick could save them. Uncle Chester, don't go, Rick called out as the old man started to rise. We haven't finished discussing Leo. Let Leo get a clean bill of health from hospital. That will put us old folks at ease. Chester had no intention of staying. He had just been compared to a constipated bulldog. God only knew what they'd come up with next. But Rick stood up, blocking his path. I'm serious, Uncle Chester. Don't be in such a hurry. It's late. I'm an old man. I can't stay up like I used to. Seeing he couldn't be stopped, Rick let out a soft sigh and sat back down. He spoke to the room, but his eyes were on his brother. The truth is, Leo does have a history of mental illness. With that, he turned his head, passing the conversational baton to Frank. I've never denied it, Frank said, his voice surprisingly casual. My son tried to kill himself once. But I get it. I was a lousy father. He was under a mountain of stress. It's no surprise a young man would crack. But look at him now. He's happier than I've ever seen him. Frank had been nonchalant all night, even his insults feeling more like a game. The others had thought his personality had changed. A suicide attempt can lead to other serious behaviors. One of the fence-sitters began, but Frank cut him off instantly. For Christ's sake, when the patriarch threw out Rick's precious seashell collection, he said he was going to kill himself too. Why didn't you make him step down as head of the family? What did I ever say that? Rick shot back, shocked to be dragged into it. I read your diary back in the day. I never kept a diary. You wrote it on your blog. Frank pressed on. Username was the Melancholy Mariner. All that flowery crap about dying to prove your point. Shut up. Rick hissed the words through clenched teeth. You shut up, Frank retorted, then leaned back in his chair, defiantly crossing his legs. He shot a subtle, questioning look at Rick. What the hell is your game? Are you on my side or not? Why are you bringing this up? But Rick acted as if he didn't see the murderous glare. He simply stood up, nodded, and looked at Frank with an unnerving calm. The suicide attempt is irrelevant. The amnesia is irrelevant. So, Frank, why don't you explain to everyone what happened with the murder? The words hung in the air, and the atmosphere in the room instantly shifted. Most of the men were confused. Only Frank Miller, who had been laughing and joking all night, felt his face tighten. A chilling coldness crept into his eyes. Leo curled his legs onto the sofa, looking at Summerlin's profile, a slipper dangling from his toes. How did you and Skylar Reed get connected? He'd been wondering about this for a while. There was no logical reason for their paths to cross. Even if they'd met once at Apex Media, it would have been a nod and hello situation at best. Taking a trip together was something else entirely. It was intimate. We just get along. You shouldn't get along. It wouldn't be strange for any two people to get along. But Skylar and Summer? That was strange. He could still hear Skylar's words from that afternoon, clear as day. I want to take her place. The other women in his life, Isabella, Evelyn, felt a certain animosity towards Summer, each for their own complicated reasons. But Skylar's goal was simple. She wanted to be his girlfriend. She and Summer were direct rivals. There was no room for strategy or subterfuge. If they met, it should have been a battle. Was that night at Apex Media the first time you two met? Yes, Summer said, adamant. So what did you talk about afterward that made you so close? Just normal girl talk. Summer, you're lying to me. Leo's gaze snapped to hers, their eyes locking in the quiet room. I'm not lying, she said, her expression serene. Okay, you're right, Leo said, backing down and retracting his suspicious glare. I was just trying to bluff you. It was a reflex, born from a fragment of recovered memory. Because of Summer's timid nature, she could never keep a secret from him. All it ever took was a simple, Summer, you're lying to me, and she'd crack, grabbing his arm and insisting she didn't mean to, before spilling everything. The loyal sidekick could never lie to the leader. It seems you two really hadn't met before, Leo mused. Of course not. Summer nodded emphatically. And it was true. From the moment she had re-entered his life, she had been just as he remembered, obedient, gentle. He didn't have his full memory, couldn't reconstruct a complete picture of her, but the Summer he knew now seemed identical to the Summer from the stories. Everyone changes. Time, perspective, new experiences, they all leave their mark. But not her. It was as if she'd been timid from childhood to now. Even her initial portrayal as the final boss in the Mafia game had been a facade. Summer, how have you not changed at all over the years? You don't even have your memory. How can you possibly know that? It's a feeling. Telling someone they haven't changed is kind of insulting, you know, she retorted, tilting her head. It's like saying they haven't grown. But that's just how it feels. Leo knew she had a point, but he couldn't offer any evidence. It was just an observation. Maybe his mom would know, but she saw Summer too often to notice gradual changes. He needed someone who had known them both long ago, but hadn't been in close contact since. He racked his brain, but came up empty. He'd forgotten so much of their shared history. Evelyn had met her, but they were all too young then. Hey, Summer, do you remember someone? Who? An old friend. I ran into him the other day. Who? An old classmate? A neighbor who moved away. Roy, Leo said. He was even in the stories you told me. Roy had appeared several times in Summer's narrative. He'd sold Leo the audio interface and microphone, and later they'd gone into business together. Leo had run into him the day before New Year's Eve, when he and Skylar were buying fireworks. Roy had been running a roadside stand, and he'd even treated them to dinner, reminiscing about the old days. Leo brought him up casually, like a middle-aged man, fondly recalling his youth. But the name seemed to strike a nerve with Summer. He sought you out. No, we just ran into each other. What did he say to you? Leo paused. He noticed something strange. Her reaction was off. He just talked about what happened back then. The propane tank explosion and all that. What did he say about it? That it wasn't like you told it. Leo tilted his head, his eyes once again locking with hers. He was clearly bluffing again. But Summer remained calm. I was never the one who told you about the explosion. Dr. Shaw was the one who filled in that part of the story. And was her version accurate? Mostly. I was in LA at the time. You only told me about it later, before the car accident. Leo's mouth curved into a smile. She was right. It had been Evelyn who told that part of the story. Her composure was flawless. Summer, you've grown up. You just said I hadn't changed at all. You've learned how to lie to me, he said, his tone certain. I'm not lying. Saying I'm not lying is in itself a lie. Leo leaned back on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, a sigh escaping his lips. He could easily find out the truth about Roy. He could ask Evelyn. He could ask his ever-present watchdog of a father. Even Silas or his Uncle Rick would know. Failing that, he could just find Roy himself. The incident had been in the news, after all. What bothered him was, why lie about it? And more importantly, Summer, in your story, the turning point when our relationship started going downhill was the night I went to Roy's place and got thrown out. If that part of the story is fabricated, it means everything that came after is built on a lie. What happened with Roy is a closed case. It was an accident. An accident can be designed, Leo said, shaking his groggy head. He stood up from a sofa and looked at her with a hint of sorrow. Summer, I never thought the biggest lie would come from you. I didn't lie. Summer, he repeated, his voice soft. You've grown up. If you're referring to the propane tank explosion, then I think there's been a misunderstanding. Frank's voice was calm as he leaned against the table. That case is closed. It was ruled an accident caused by improper handling. Frank, no one is disputing the official outcome of that incident, Rick said, his words directed at his brother, but his gaze fixed on the fence-sitters across the room. Anyone who did would have a seriously twisted agenda. It was a clear warning. Then why are you flapping your damn gums? Frank couldn't open his mouth without a little profanity. Watch your mouth. You watch yours. I swear to God. A breaking point was reached in a single second. Frank, having thoroughly dressed down the entire room, grabbed his leather jacket and turned to leave. Bunch of old men who should be in bed. You think you're still teenagers? Frank, since Leo has chosen to stay, Some things need to be cleared up, or they'll fester, Rick said, stopping him. He ran a hand over his palm, signaling for his brother to sit down in the wicker chair to his left, especially when Uncle Chester and these other gentlemen are so concerned about Leo's well-being. Rick took the head seat at the tea table and spoke slowly. After all, Uncle Chester managed to dig up hospital records. It wouldn't be surprising if he unearthed a few other skeletons from the closet. Let him dig, Frank shot back. He can hire Sherlock Holmes for all I care. It was an accident. The conversation between the two brothers silenced the room, leaving even Uncle Chester baffled. At first, he dismissed the mention of the propane tank incident. It sounded like something Frank would do, a rash act of violence. The preconceived notion of Frank's character was a massive liability. But the more he listened, the more something felt wrong, especially the key word, murder. When they heard that word, several of the fence-sitters had quietly sent men out of the room, presumably to make calls, but Chester had stopped them. This was off. Would Rick intentionally expose Leo's dirty laundry? Impossible. This had to be a trap. But Rick's warning gave him a new idea. If Leo was truly involved in a murder, then Chester's faction had a powerful weapon. But would killing someone actually disqualify him as an heir? Chester shook his head privately. No, a murder would primarily cause a public scandal, but Frank's confidence suggested the matter was contained. There would be no social fallout. So, Chester wasn't interested in the details of the murder itself. What was the point? Whether Leo killed someone or not was irrelevant to him. Rick's warning was actually a negotiation tactic. He was setting the rules of the game. The unspoken rule was, you can't investigate the murder, but you can use it to question his mental state. This played right into Chester's hands. His objective was clear. A person with mental instability and a history of severe violence cannot be an heir. Before you could take on the family's responsibilities, you have to be a sane human being. With that, Chester spoke up. The family council will conduct an evaluation of Leo's mental health. If necessary, we will mandate a full psychiatric examination. Frank planted his hands on the table and scanned the faces around him, his gaze lingering on Rick. He wasn't angry, not playing the thug. He just nodded calmly. What are the stakes? What happens if he passes, and what happens if he fails? If he passes, he remains the heir. If he fails, the family will pay for his treatment. The terms are acceptable, but the outcome isn't. Frank shook his head, holding up two fingers in front of Chester's face. If there's a penalty for failure, there has to be a reward for success. A reward? Chester was stumped. What kind of reward could possibly match the stakes of an heir's confirmation? A car? A house? Frank, how about we reward your son with a wife? Chester gestured toward Clem, who was standing quietly in the background. My son has everything he needs, especially wives. Then what do you want? Right now, the family council has 13 seats. Unlucky number. Let's add a 14th and make it even. Chester shot up from his chair, his mustache quivering with rage. Frank, Leo is 20 years old. You want to give him a seat on the council? Are you insane? Heroes aren't judged by their origins. I'm not talking about his origins. I'm talking about his age. Frank scratched his head. Damn it. He'd messed up the folksy wisdom again. Ahem. Youth, Frank. The saying is about youth. Rick coughed, offering a subtle correction. Frank picked up the signal. Right. Young heroes aren't judged by their origins. I'm not questioning his origins. And aren't you his origin anyway? Chester slammed his hand on the table. Even if Leo is deemed mentally sound, he has to spend the next 10 years working his way up through the company like everyone else. What does working his way up have to do with attending council meetings? Attending the meetings gives him a voice in every family appointment. So let him have a voice. Absolutely not. Chester slapped the table again. He would die before he agreed to this. A 20-year-old on the family council? Unthinkable. Juniors could observe, but a seat? That was giving Leo a decade's head start, putting him in the core circle of power. For the next 10 years, no one in the family would be able to check his growth. Frank was using this as an opportunity to clear the path for his son. I will never agree to this, not even if I'm dead. Are you afraid to die? Frank's lips twisted into a smirk. He casually looped his necktie into a loose knot and slipped it over Chester's head, his fingers brushing against the old man's bristly cheek. Uncle Chester, he whispered, do you want to see an explosion? Don't you threaten me, Frank. You think you can blow all of us up? Of course not. Frank leaned in, his forehead nearly touching Chester's, his cloudy eyes filled with a serene madness. Everyone here is afraid of a propane tank exploding. But everyone here also wants a propane tank to explode. They're afraid it'll go off under their own bed, but they hope it goes off under someone else's. Because in the Miller family, the tank only explodes once. After that, I either spend the rest of my life in prison or get exiled. Either way, there's no place for me here. But it's going to explode sooner or later. Do you want it to be you? Chester stared back into Frank's eyes and saw the same reckless insanity he'd seen when Frank was a boy. He had watched this kid grow up. The one who set fire to the family crypt at 8, stowed away on a cargo ship at 12, got stabbed 9 times at 14. A person's reputation is a hard thing to maintain. Reality has a way of shattering facades. But Rick and Frank's reputations were set in stone. Rick Miller, the saint. Frank Miller, the gentleman. Don't be scared, Uncle Chester. We live in a civilized age. I never use my hands. Frank, a cigarette dangling from his lips, reached into a large black bag by the door. Chester sat frozen, staring at the ceiling. He knew he couldn't refuse. But when he went back, he'd be crucified. The other 10 fence-sitters would call him a coward. But who among them would dare to call Frank's bluff? His mind raced. The core of this meeting is to determine Leo's mental state. A thought struck him. Wait, if I agree, that's a good thing. Who knows who will win this game? His eyes lit up. I agree. The business of the meeting was concluded, but social etiquette demanded they linger. They were here for tea. After all, the negotiations were merely a side event. So, even with nothing left to say, they had to pretend to sip their tea and make small talk. For the sake of fairness, Frank cannot be involved in the evaluation of Leo's mental state, Chester declared. No way. What if you try to poison my son? Frank would never agree to that. You can test him, but I'm watching. If you tip him off or interfere, the test will be meaningless. Don't care. Sometimes being unreasonable is the most effective strategy in the world. When everyone else is playing by civilized rules, the one who breaks them holds all the power. Then we can't do it, Chester said with a helpless sigh. Then don't. Frank, stay out of this, Rick interjected, playing the mediator. The moment he spoke, Frank's tone shifted. Fine. But if he gets to make demands, so do I. Name them, Rick said with an air of weary resignation. All of my grandchildren get a spot in the family trust. Annual dividends. Done. Chester agreed with a nod. How many kids can Leo and his wives possibly have? 3? For at most. Leo's legitimate children were already entitled to a trust share. Making an exception for 2 more wives, Willow and Isabella, was a small price to pay. How many kids could they produce? I have 6 daughters-in-law, Frank announced. Let's not go crazy. Say 2 kids each. Wait a minute. Is Leo planning on populating a new Miller dynasty? Chester nearly choked, his head spinning. That was the difference between a legitimate son and an illegitimate one. A son enjoyed the full benefits of the family. The family didn't care how many mistresses you had, but you paid for their children out of your own pocket. Frank, you're pushing it. I gave you what you wanted. Now you give me what I want. It's settled. Frank shut Chester down, then sat back and said casually, Uncle Chester, you have to understand. Raising kids these days is expensive. As a father, I have to think about my son. You know how hard his life has been. I can't let his kids suffer too, can I? His life has been hard. Who marries half a dozen women and complains about his hard life? Why wouldn't he complain? You should see my daughters-in-law. I'm worried he won't live long. Frank, you know Leo's marriages are strategic. To enjoy the family benefits, you must bring benefits to the family. You're saying my daughters-in-law are useless. They're useful to your son, but not to the family. Fine, I'll call Mr. Vance right now and tell him Uncle Chester says his daughter is worthless and doesn't deserve the family's benefits. Stop. I agree. Chester conceded with a nod and turned to leave without a moment's hesitation. But before he left, he looked past the belligerent Frank and fixed his gaze on Rick. Something was off about Rick tonight. It was obvious he was on Frank's side. Blood was thicker than water. With the old patriarch gone, the glue that held the different branches together had dissolved. The lines were being drawn. The Millers of Rick and Frank's line were not the same as the others. He was about to probe further, but Rick answered his unspoken question. I'll be moving into the lakeside cabin tonight. Good. Chester asked no more questions and walked out of the courtyard, the flock of fence-sitters trailing behind him. When they surrounded him, he offered a single explanation. He's becoming the new patriarch. He's moving into the cabin and removing himself from the core conflict. So, it's us against Leo and Frank now, one of them asked. This feels familiar. When the old man was alive, he had watched from that same cabin as everyone else fought. All history is contemporary history. You think our petty family squabbles are unique. Chester sighed and walked on. A new war has begun. Without conflict, the Miller family is a stagnant pond. We'd all drown eventually, Rick said softly, sitting by the lake. He loved showing off his intellect to his brutish younger brother. I get it. I played my part well today, didn't I? Frank said, hands in his pockets, gazing across the water. It was adequate. Damn it. Would it kill you to praise me once? Frank knew his arrogant brother's nature, so he let it slide. This was a good chance to solidify Leo's position and speed up his development. A brilliant countermove on your part. And lucky I was quick enough to play along. I'm not accelerating his development, Rick said, skipping a stone across the water's surface, watching the ripples spread. I'm ending the conflict. For good. He sighed. That condition you demanded was brilliant. Of course it was. Raising kids is expensive. School, cars, houses, weddings, inheritance fights. What I mean is, Rick interrupted, Leo must have that many children. What? If he doesn't, how will this family stay in the hands of a miller? Frank thought his brother was being cryptic again, on the verge of calling him senile. But then he processed the words and fell silent. So, you're really going to have Leo create a whole new branch of the family? Make the entire family our family. It will be Leo's family. I've thought about it, Frank admitted, but it feels like a betrayal to the old man. And we'd be condemned for it for the rest of our lives. Why do you think the patriarch, knowing full well that the rift between us and the elder cousins would only grow after his death, was so determined to pass the leadership to me? Because you were the most suitable. Because I have the stomach for it. Rick corrected him. I sent my own son to his near death. What else am I not willing to sacrifice? Frank grew even more silent, but Rick's eyes were bright with fervor. What has been the core reason for the infighting all these years, Frank? It's blood. It all comes down to the fact that our immediate family has different blood than the others. In a social structure built on lineage, that is the original sin. So, either we go or they go. Those are the only two outcomes. The old man had to choose. He chose us, because if we were the ones to go, neither of us would have met a good end. In their eyes, we're outsiders. Our deaths would be justified, even though this entire empire was built on our backs. But if they're the ones to go, our guilt as outsiders would compel us to provide for them in their old age. It's that simple. Frank nodded silently in acknowledgement. He thought for a long time before finally speaking. Tell me what to do. I'll follow your lead. This will be a long process. The first step is for Leo to secure his position. Ow! Rick shot his brother a condescending look, a silent mockery of his simplicity. Let them investigate. I was just bluffing to make them take the bait. The innocent have nothing to fear. Huh? The innocent? What if he's not so innocent? Wait, is your son actually mentally ill? You didn't even know that, and you dare to cook up this whole scheme? Frank's mustache practically flew off his face with rage. Rick's eyes widened as if he'd heard the most absurd thing in the world. You handled the propane tank incident so perfectly, I never knew the real details. What actually happened? You didn't know? Why didn't you say so sooner? Frank grabbed Rick's face, shouting, Don't you dare joke with me about this. Relax, I'm just kidding. The hell you are, Rick. I know you. You only say that when you're scared. You can't lie to me. Rick turned his head away, his face flushing red, utterly speechless. The faction of fence-sitters had a simple structure. If the old patriarch was the first generation, then the second generation consisted of 13 cousins total. The brothers Rick and Frank Miller, despite their immense power, were near the bottom of that list in seniority, ranked 12th and 13th. The faction's de facto leader was Uncle Chester, number 7, whose resentment stemmed from watching these younger men usurp the influence that should have been his by age and rank. Those older than him had mostly retired, leaving him to fight a losing battle. But at this moment, Chester couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, replaying Rick's moves in his head. Julian, let me test you. What do you think Rick's game was? Maybe it was a spur-of-the-moment decision. Julian ventured, having no real idea. It's possible, Chester nodded, but some things didn't add up. Then why expose a weakness? Whether Leo has a mental illness or not is something that could be easily investigated. The question stumped Julian. He could only guess again. Maybe Leo doesn't have a mental illness at all. It's possible. Chester said the words, but he was practically pulling his mustache out. The problem with a situation like this was the ambiguity. A clear lie was easy to deal with, as was a clear truth. But this was a minefield of truth and lies. Should he take the bait? He had to. The game had already started. Backing down now was a surrender. But I still feel like something is wrong. What bothered Chester was Frank's performance. The old thug was not a man who could put on an act. His reaction screamed that his son really did have a problem. Uncle Chester, Julian said, a new, wild theory forming in his mind. What if Rick doesn't know Leo has a problem either? His previous answers had been shots in the dark, but this one felt strangely plausible. Frank's reaction had seemed genuinely panicked. Impossible. Chester dismissed it immediately. even giving Julian a light smack on the head. In the Miller family, you have to remember one thing to believe and one thing not to believe. What should I believe? Believe every word that comes out of Frank Miller's mouth. If he says he's going to beat the hell out of you tonight, he'll be at your door, right on schedule. And what shouldn't I believe? A single word that comes out of Rick Miller's mouth. He's always fishing, always setting a trap. No matter how hard Chester thought, he couldn't imagine Frank making such a rookie mistake. It was impossible. Therefore, there was only one truth. Leo isn't sick at all. Chester arrived at this startling conclusion, his face instantly relaxing into a triumphant smile. He slapped the table, pleased with himself. Julian stared at him, utterly bewildered as to how he'd reached that conclusion. But that didn't stop him from kissing up. You're brilliant, Uncle Chester. A step ahead of Rick. Don't say that. Rick is a sharp one, Chester said, setting his teacup down with a soft click. But I, Chester Miller, am no fool either. Son, be careful. That Chester has a screw loose. God knows what kind of stunt he'll pull. But Dad, I really did have a breakdown. We'll just have to bluff our way through it. This is all Rick's fault, that damn schemer. I'm going to beat the hell out of him today. But son, a chip off the old block, a thug's son knows how to be a thug. We bluffed our way past the suicide attempt, but you blowing up that guy's house. I blew up. Wait, I'm the one who blew up Roy's place. His name is Roy Gannon. He screwed you out of your money. What does that have to do with being mentally ill? Couldn't it just be that I was young and stupid, with a strong sense of revenge? Leo felt like this was a perfectly logical explanation. It was no different from some hot-headed kid pulling a knife in a fight. You could call them idiots, but you couldn't call them clinically insane. His simple logic, however, silenced Frank. It took him a long moment to respond. Son, did you think I just pulled some strings to keep you out of jail for being reckless? Wasn't that it? That's way more serious than getting in a fight. I did pull some strings, Frank admitted, but the strings I pulled were with the psychiatric hospital. All I did was make sure you didn't have to be involuntarily committed. The words hung in the air, silencing Leo. It was a mutual checkmate. It took him a moment to process it. So, you're telling me it wasn't your power that saved me. It was the insanity defense. At the time, they said you were a psychopath. I didn't believe it. I even yelled at the doctor. But after they explained your behavior, I apologized to him. Leo put down his phone and turned to look at Summer Lynn. His eyes were full of questions. Summer just sighed softly and nodded, signaling that he could hang up. This was her story to tell. Leo, I didn't mean to lie to you. I just thought some things are better left forgotten. Well, someone wants me to remember now. I don't have a choice. Leo shrugged helplessly, went to the fridge, and pulled out 2 Cokes. He set them on the table, stuck a straw in one, and settled into a comfortable position on the sofa. Want a Coke? It's too cold. I don't want one. I'll get you some hot water then. Okay. A perfect story always begins with a cup of hot water. Summer started by recounting the whole story. It was the day of her first real fight with Leo. Exhausted and worn down by the agency in L.A., she couldn't get a hold of him. That day, Leo had just been released from a police station holding cell. He and Roy had gotten into a dispute over their recruiting startup. Roy had suggested they dissolve the partnership and then stolen the money that was rightfully Leo's. Desperate and furious, Leo had gone to Roy's house. He had been thrown out. A lot happened that night. Evelyn saw him try to hang himself. Silas saved him, and Summer, frantic and unable to reach him, snuck out of the agency and came back to Riverbend. Why would you lie to me about that? Wouldn't it have been better to just tell me the truth at the time? Then I wouldn't have been able to keep it a secret. But don't you realize, Leo said, his voice soft, that in the story you told me, there was never a single mention of your own sacrifice? Why had Leo never seemed to blame Summer, even when her portrayal was consistently negative? Because he knew that in any long-term relationship, it's never just one person giving. That effort is either unspoken or misunderstood by outsiders. A long relationship with zero sacrifice from one party is a violation of logic. You can't look at love in black and white. Summer, you're the classic people pleaser. Her upbringing was a textbook case for developing that personality type. A broken home, a desperate need for affection, a difficult career path, a lover she was always chasing. People like her were ashamed to talk about their own contributions and struggled to voice their own needs. Simply put, they lack confidence. The logic of a people pleaser is strange. Their happiness is built on the happiness of others. They find joy in making others happy, even at their own expense. It sounds hard to understand, but the world is full of people like that. The most obvious sign is someone who makes jokes about their own flaws or painful past to make others laugh. It's a form of self-deprecation for the sake of group harmony. Summer didn't argue. She had clearly heard this from him many times before. She just nodded, indicating she would continue the story. That day, she returned to Riverbend. She found Leo in a cheap motel. He had been beaten up the day before and was too bruised and swollen to go home. When Summer pushed open the door, Leo was shirtless in the cramped bathroom, fiddling with a stubborn faucet, trying to get it to work. Leo, what happened to you? You should be asking this faucet what happened. It's showing me zero respect. Summer, who had rushed back from LA, looked exhausted. She walked over to him and studied his face, a face she hadn't seen in what felt like ages. Tears instantly welled in her eyes. What are you crying for? It's not like I'm dead. Leo grinned, stuck his toothbrush in his mouth, and casually pinched her cheek as if nothing was wrong. So, is this an approved leave of absence, or did you just take off? I went AWOL. When the words left her mouth, Leo was visibly stunned. He probably never expected such a rebellious act from her. Summer's heart pounded. She was sure he would tell her to go back immediately, and she would have to, because she always listened to him. But he didn't. All he said was, well, if you're AWOL, you're AWOL. At the time, she didn't understand what he meant. She just nodded forcefully and asked with concern, Leo, tell me what happened. Just a disagreement. We got into a fight. You promised me you wouldn't fight with people anymore. I didn't want to, but you can't just stand there when someone's hitting you, can you? Did you call the police? Okay, don't worry about it. Leo gently coaxed her out of the bathroom and sat her on the bed. One of Summer's defining traits was that she was easy to soothe and easy to fool. I found a new job. I can start as soon as I heal up. I was supposed to start today, but the old guy said you need a pretty face for this line of work. What kind of job? I'll tell you after I check it out and see if it's legit. Oh, okay. Somehow, in the course of the conversation, she ended up lying down on the bed. It wasn't unusual for a young couple to find themselves in this situation. The questions she wanted to ask were caught in her throat, replaced by soft murmurs. A young couple, separated for a long time, was like a spark to dry tinder, especially at their age. And Summer had been training as a dancer for months. Her body had become even more toned and exquisite. Of course, she enjoyed it. It was the right person in the right place doing the right thing. The only thing that wasn't right was that Leo's heart didn't seem to be in it. Leo, you don't actually want to do this. You're just using it to change the subject. They teach psychology at your agency now. You're always like this, Leo. You never tell me anything. If you know I won't tell you, then why do you ask? He was always like this. Summer had no response. She could only curl up in a corner, hugging a blanket, and sulk. Are you mad? MHM. Then why don't you yell at me? Leo propped himself up on an elbow, looking at her with an amused expression. Summer was naked, her pale skin peeking out from the edges of the blanket wrapped around her. I'm not going to yell, she said. Why not? Because you look so tired. That's not the right answer. The old you would have just shaken your head silently. Because my head is telling me I should yell at you, that we're going to fight about this sooner or later anyway. But my heart is telling me I can't because you're exhausted. Whoa, Summer, you really have grown up. Leaving home was the right decision for you. For her, personally, it was the right decision. She was slowly learning to live outside his shadow, to grow on her own. If she ever became famous, her autobiography would tell the story of a timid girl who bravely chased her dreams at 18 and gradually became an adult. But for every general who finds glory, 1,000 soldiers fall. She was the one rising, and Leo was the one withering. Leo, maybe we really need to talk. Maybe the price of my stardom is more than we can afford. It's just a matter of who pays first. I'll support you until you're a big star, and then you can support me. She had heard those words 100 times. Whenever she wanted to give up, that was what he would say. There was no denying his charm. Women are naturally drawn to strength. But Summer felt she loved him, not just his strength. Leo, have you ever thought about what you want to do in the future? Haven't thought about it. There's a difference between not having thought about it and having thought about it, but not finding an answer. Leo froze, the motion of pulling on his pants halting midair. He turned to look at her, a brief, gratified smile flashing across his face. Leo, you always look at me like a big brother looks at his little sister. That's bordering on some weird territory. I'm not into that. He flopped back onto the bed. I'm forcing myself not to think. I just do whatever is right in front of me. Why not think? Because if I think too much, everything becomes a problem. So, talk to me about it. Let me hear what you're thinking. I'm afraid to think. Leo stood by the cheap aluminum window frame, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath of the greasy air wafting in from outside, then snapped them open. Summer, he said, his voice strained, right now, I'm afraid to think about anything. Summer looked at his unfamiliar back. She went to the edge of the bed and took his hand. Leo, tell me why. That unfamiliar back turned around. He tapped his own head, a wicked grin spreading across his face. Because I want to kill him. You can imagine the look on Summer's face when she heard those words. You're joking, right? Of course. No, Leo. You're not joking. A people pleaser is almost always accompanied by a sensitive heart. How else could they perceive others' emotions so acutely? An unsettling feeling clogged Summer's chest, a physical ache. Their bodies were so close, but their hearts felt miles apart. She had felt this distance growing for a while, which was why she'd boarded that plane, hoping for a change. But it wasn't enough. She couldn't break their established dynamic. Leo, you can't keep doing this. Doing what? He helped her put on her shirt, stroking her hair, just like he always had. I'm here. You don't have to worry about anything. But we're a couple. We're supposed to share things. Come on, you finally get a break. Let me take you out for some good food. Leo, I'm not finished talking. We can talk after we eat. Let's go. Lying to Summer was easier than selling snake oil to a senior citizen. A break is a break. You should relax. Yes, going AWOL counts as a break. And on a relaxing day, we shouldn't discuss heavy topics. Want to get a corn dog? This matching outfit looks good. Let's take a picture. Faced with Leo's constant redirection, Summer was helpless. The words she wanted to say were repeatedly pushed aside. Finally, as he was coaxing her toward the airport terminal, she realized what was happening and began to resist. Leo, why are you in such a hurry to send me away? You've had your break. Now it's time to get back to work. If you're gone too long, they'll fire you. But you haven't explained anything to me. Summer finally exploded. I'm not leaving until you tell me what's going on. Her face was flushed, her body trembling slightly. This is what it looks like when an introvert finds their courage for the first time. The adrenaline is already surging. She wanted to change, so she had to be brave just this once. That was my money from countless sleepless nights. He just stole it. I can't let it go. Then you can go to the police. If that worked, do you think I'd be in this mess? But that doesn't mean you have to kill someone. I don't know, okay? Stop asking. Just let me be alone for a while. Leo, this is wrong. We have to be law-abiding citizens. I know that. Don't worry, I was just thinking about it. Leo's expression was as bright and sunny as ever. He stuffed her bag with snacks and essentials until it was overflowing. But Summer felt like she understood him less and less. It felt like he was just going through the motions with her, fulfilling an obligation. Faced with this, her first instinct was still to apologize and yield. I'm sorry, Leo. I shouldn't have fought with you when I couldn't find you yesterday. It's okay. At that moment, Summer had no idea that Leo had just survived a suicide attempt. She couldn't see things from his perspective. All she could do was try to find a reason for his dark mood. She assumed it was a combination of being cheated out of his money and fighting with her, a perfect storm of despair. I'm so sorry, Leo. This is all my fault. Please don't think about those terrible things anymore. I promise I'll never fight with you again. The more she spoke, the more guilt she felt, tears streaming down her face. But seeing her like this, Leo just sighed. Summer, this is why I don't tell you things. You're too sensitive. You did nothing wrong in this situation. I didn't contact you, so from your perspective, I disappeared. I completely understand why you were worried. No one is blaming you. And the reason I didn't tell you about the fight or the money is for the same reason. If I had, it would have planted a seed in your mind. You would have obsessed over it, wondering if it was your dream that was causing me all this trouble. And you would have drowned in guilt. Summer leaned her head on his shoulder, crying silently. She knew it. He always understood everything. He was infallible. But I should feel guilty. I support your dream, Summer, but not so you can live in a state of constant guilt and sadness. He stroked her hair, watching a plane take off in the distance. I want you to be more confident, more brave, to walk your own path. But what can I do for you? Summer, you're my rock. Really, as long as you're around, I won't think about all that other crazy stuff. You scare me to death. Summer laughed through her tears, as if she had just won the lottery. So I'm useful to you, of course. But Leo, what kind of life do you actually want? I can't figure it out. Well, when you do, you have to tell me. I'll work 10 jobs to support you. 10 won't be enough. Probably need 20. It's a deal. And just like that, she was once again coaxed into the departure lounge, dazed but happy. She was his rock. She was useful. While waiting to board, she sat on a bench and stared at the sky, dreaming of the future. 2 ordinary teenagers would eventually make it. She would become a huge star and make a lot of money. And then it would be her turn to support him. Just wait a little longer for me, Leo. At that age, life revolved around dreams and love. What else did an 18-year-old know? Then she saw the video. Someone had forwarded it. A suicide video. The original source was Silas, but had been passed around as a morbidly fascinating piece of gossip. Summer instantly recognized the familiar figure, the familiar face. In that moment, her world collapsed. Leo tried to kill himself? A cold dread washed over her. Every hair on her body stood on end, and her legs began to shake uncontrollably. If you can't imagine the feeling, try to picture a loved one attempting suicide right in front of you. The warm riverbend air suddenly felt arctic. I'm not his rock. A wave of betrayal crashed over her. The fragile confidence she had just built, the idea that I am useful, shattered in an instant. I have to find him. Summer felt utterly deceived. She had always believed every word Leo said, never doubting him for a second. But today he had lied. He had promised that as long as she was there, he wouldn't have those dark thoughts. If he lied today, were all his previous words true? She didn't know. All she could do was run back to the motel in a daze. She arrived just in time to see Leo leaving, a huge backpack slung over his shoulder. She didn't approach him. She knew she wouldn't get the truth. So, she followed him from a distance. Luckily, Leo was frugal and always used a shared bike to get around. Luckily, he was in such a hurry that day that he didn't notice his surroundings. And luckily, he stuck to busy streets, never ducking into alleys, which made it possible for a novice tracker like her to keep up. She watched him linger outside a familiar apartment complex. She recognized it. It was where Roy lived. Leo had taken her there once to buy an audio interface for her birthday. A terrible premonition began to bloom in her chest, but she had to know what he was planning. This time, she didn't want to hide anything from her. So she followed him for 2 whole days. She saw him tail Roy's wife, learning the exact time she left to pick up their child from school. She saw him rent a small apartment nearby. She even saw him go to the psychiatric ward of the local hospital. Summer checked into a motel not far away, keeping a constant watch on him. On the 3rd day, she lost him. She had slept in until noon, and when she woke up, she stared at the entrance of Leo's rented apartment for 3 hours straight. He never appeared. Normally, he would have left around this time. A sense of dread washed over her. She ran to his apartment and knocked, but there was no answer. She called his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. She hailed a cab and rushed to Roy's apartment complex. She saw the ambulance, the police cars, and Frank Miller. She knew it was all over. "You son of a bitch, you say my son is a psychopath one more time." Frank was shouting at a police officer. The surveillance footage is crystal clear. He displays extensive aimless behavior, like banging his head against a wall and suddenly stopping to make faces at the camera. We also have his visitation record from the city hospital's psychiatric unit yesterday. And most importantly, he has a history of a suicide attempt. Frank looked at the footage, momentarily speechless. Then he saw Summer and waved her over, motioning toward the security office where Leo was being held. Normally, she wouldn't have been allowed anywhere near him. But with Frank leading the way, the officer guarding the door was conveniently called away by a superior, and another officer by the window was conveniently busy organizing evidence. All just coincidences. Summer saw him then, handcuffed and curled up on the floor. His face was smudged with dirt. Her lips turned down. The betrayal, the lies, none of it mattered in that moment. To be hurt by deception, you have to love. If someone you didn't care about lied to you, would you even react? Since it was all built on a foundation of love, there was nothing left to say, because love is pain. Summer knelt down and stroked his head. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Her career in LA seemed trivial. "Leo," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I'm not leaving. I'll stay with you, and we'll get you through this." "You believe I'm sick too?" "The doctors outside said so," Summer whispered, seeing the confusion on his face. "They said you showed a lot of aimless behavior on the cameras. That was on purpose. Banging my head, making a face. That's all it was. They said you just went to the psych ward yesterday. That was on purpose, too. Why else would I go yesterday of all days?" "What? I wasn't trying to lie to you. All of this was just to get that bastard. A plan like this, the fewer people who know, the better." "Leo, you." Summer looked at him in disbelief. His action seemed so absurd, so far-fetched, that no one would easily believe him. But curled up in the corner, Leo's mouth quirked into a smile. The gash on his dusty forehead had been crudely treated, but was still seeping blood. His eyes, however, were full of pride. "Summer, since when have you ever seen me take a beating and not hit back? He dared to steal my money. I had to get him." Seeing the lingering disbelief in her eyes, he explained further. "So I'm not sick at all. It was all part of the plan. But Leo, you tried to kill yourself." He clearly hadn't expected her to know about that. A bitter, self-deprecating sound escaped his lips, and he lowered his head. "Summer, I never wanted to do something so extreme. But he almost pushed me to it. He tried to kill me first." I know. She stayed there, motionless, leaning her shoulder against his in silence. The problem now wasn't about illness. It was about the consequences. When you're young, you make reckless mistakes driven by 1,000 different factors. After the rush comes the emptiness. The two of them sat together in the corner of the security office, the silver of the handcuffs a cold, unnerving glint in the dim light. They didn't know what judgment awaited them, how much this one impulsive act would change the course of their lives. Summer, I regret it, Leo whispered, a self-mocking smile on his lips. I shouldn't have done something so extreme. It's okay. Summer knelt and gently wiped the dirt from his face with her sleeve. You have to go, Summer. If the agency finds out about this, you're finished. This is a serious black mark. I'm not leaving. Listen to me. If I go to prison, no one will hire me when I get out. You'll have to make a lot of money to support me. Okay, then go. I'm not leaving. Summer shook her head, just looking at him. Leo, from today on, I'm grown up. I'm not the little girl you can just send away with a few sweet words anymore. Lying to you and screwing you over are two different things. This is for your own good. If I told you a white lie for your own good, would you accept it? No, absolutely not. Then why do you think I would? You wouldn't, he said with a wry smile, turning his head slightly. But I'm going to lie anyway. I'm just that kind of bad guy. I'm staying with you, Leo. The scene felt eerily familiar to Summer. It seemed like life was a balancing act. Ordinary people lived ordinary lives, without great highs or great lows. But people like Leo were born for turmoil. The highs were spectacular, full of charm and brilliance. The lows were crushing, full of grime and struggle. The schoolyard fights, the nights spent soaked to the bone in the rain, the inability to pay hospital bills, the despair that led to a noose, the impulsive act that could lead to prison. For every shining moment, there was an equally dark one. But Summer was lucky. She was lucky that despite all her flaws, there was one thing she had never done wrong. In all those dark moments, she had never left his side. Love is accepting someone at their absolute lowest. In Summer's opinion, a man's charm and his ability to be a good partner were two entirely different things. So, she stubbornly believed the fault was her own. When Leo was inexplicably released and they returned to his rented room, she apologized again. This time, she poured her heart out. Leo, even if this was all your plan, would a normal person come up with a plan like this? You have a problem, and I'm sure I'm part of the reason. I'm your girlfriend. So let's just get through this and solve the problem, okay? She didn't stubbornly insist on staying to be with him. If a couple had no financial worries, then companionship was the most profound declaration of love. The kind of companionship in a high school romance was heartwarming. But when money was an issue, the meaning of companionship became complicated. Summer felt that even if she stayed, it would be pointless. Leo would still have to go out and work. Their lives wouldn't improve. Her time as a trainee had shown her the cold realities of the world. The bottom rung of society was an inescapable island. The most pragmatic solution was to comfort him while finding a practical way forward for herself. I thought you were going to say you'd die with me, that we could enjoy the thrill of a love affair in hell. Is that something a normal person would say? She's definitely not a normal person. Leo. Summer kicked off her shoes at the door, her expression wounded as she looked up at him. This she, is it a he-she or a she-she? A she-she. I think you've even met her. Oh. Summer turned her face away. Her white socks made a soft scraping sound on the wooden floor. Thanks to her relentless dance practice, her body was light and graceful. Her long, straight hair with its sharp bangs was a style fit for a queen, perfectly complementing her delicate features. But she was a pushover. Even her jealousy only manifested as a pout. Are you jealous? If I don't say anything, it means I'm not jealous. Summer mumbled, curling up on the bed with her legs hugged to her chest. Oh, I knew you wouldn't be jealous. Leo shook his head and went to pour some water, grinning as he offered her a glass. I'm full. Full of what? Not water, that's for sure. Oh, soy sauce. Leo. Summer's large eyes blinked up at him. To be honest, she was used to this sour feeling. Over the years, Leo had never lacked for female admirers. But being used to it didn't mean it didn't sting. Fine, Leo. It's my fault I can't be with you. That's why other women have a chance. But you can't actually fall for them. Summer stared at him, annoyed. The words that had just come out of his mouth weren't hers. He was mimicking her. What are you looking at me like that for? I was just saying it for you. Leo leaned back on the bed, casually resting his head on her shoulder. He still had a wound on his forehead. Summer tried to lower her shoulder to give him a more comfortable spot while whimpering, well, what else am I supposed to do? A woman's tears were Leo's trophies. It was proof that players were truly rotten. Countless girls had cried for him. But all Summer could do was cry. It was what she had always done. She couldn't handle the possessiveness that came with jealousy, but a man like Leo was destined to attract attention. Was she supposed to break up with him? The thought had never even crossed her mind. No matter how sensitive, fragile, or ordinary she was, no matter how many wrong choices she made, she had never considered leaving him. She could always find an excuse for him. It's my fault. Summer, you did nothing wrong. I was just thinking that to myself. Caught. Summer's face flushed red, and she tried to turn away. It's okay. I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. Leo. Summer's eyes instantly softened, and the atmosphere in the small room shifted. Blame others more. Doubt yourself less. I know. Summer pushed his head away and scooted down, resting her head on his chest and curling up in his arms. This was her favorite position, where she felt safest, enveloped by his embrace. You don't know, Leo said softly. The person I was talking about was a girl from the class next to mine in middle school. She was kind of childhood friend. I saw her a few days ago. Oh, I didn't mean to doubt you, Leo. I'm sorry. I didn't explain it first because I was hoping that after being out in the world, you'd have learned to express your own emotions and doubts. You're my girlfriend. You're supposed to be jealous. In fact, I'd be worried if you weren't. His words thrilled her. She perked up, happily picking at a loose thread on his shirt. Are you listening to me? I was wrong, Leo. I just told you that you weren't wrong. I'm willing to be wrong. Summer giggled, hugging his arm. She would admit she was wrong 100 times if it made him happy. Summer, you really need to be more confident. I'm super confident. Okay, then let me ask you. Do you think you're amazing? Of course I'm not amazing. Summer believed that no one would ever claim to be amazing in front of their idol. And who was her idol? Leo, of course. His image had been ingrained in her mind since childhood. Even his farts seemed amazing to her. You are amazing. Oh, okay, I'm amazing. What's so amazing about me? You have such a beautiful singing voice. You gained so many followers on TikTok. You got a chance to become a star. Can an ordinary person do that? But I never would have stuck with it without you. Now, imagine a world without me. Imagine you accomplishing all of that on your own. Summer obediently closed her eyes, but they popped open less than 2 seconds later. Leo, I can't imagine a world without you. This wasn't some cheesy pickup line. It was the truth. She had never known a life without him. It was like asking someone who had never been to war to imagine the blood and chaos of a battlefield. Summer, even if you couldn't have done it without me, have you ever wondered why I'm here? I don't know. Because you deserve to have a boyfriend who loves you very much. Leo sighed softly. Do you know why the great masters always choose apprentices who are honest and dependable, rather than prodigies with flashy talent? I don't know. Because loyalty is the most precious quality. No one can be on top forever. No matter how far I go, when I look back, you'll always be there. Summer was dizzy with joy. She was so happy. So I really am amazing. Of course you are. Leo took her by the shoulders and led her to the window, watching the sun set behind the distant mountains. The golden light bathed the young couple in a sacred glow, a stark contrast to the shabby room behind them. Praise yourself, he said. I can't. It's embarrassing to praise yourself. Tell yourself you're the most amazing girl in the world. I'm not the most amazing girl in the world. Summer thought that was a bit of an exaggeration. She was such an ordinary person, sensitive, fragile, timid. She even thought the older girl Leo had mentioned, the one who would die with him, was more amazing than she was. At least she had the courage to think it. Summer, he said, his voice serious. The day you can stand in the sun and praise yourself without shame, that's the day you'll become the most amazing girl in the world. But I don't have the courage. You have to. Stand in the sunlight and praise yourself without reservation. Summer could only stay with Leo for one day. She had managed that much only by repeatedly apologizing to her manager, concocting a story about a sick relative. She cherished every second of that precious day, talking nonstop. Leo, why did you rent this place? To heal up before I go home. Staying in a motel long-term is too expensive, so you're going to be here for a while. When Leo nodded, an idea sparked in Summer's mind. Let's go. Their trip out was for supplies. They bought toiletries, food, and other necessities. If you're on your own, you definitely just eat whatever's convenient instead of going grocery shopping. She also gave the room a thorough cleaning. Finally, they had dinner in the cramped apartment, huddled on the sofa around a small electric hot pot. I thought brisket was your favorite. Why didn't you let me buy any? Leo dipped a slice of lamb into the bubbling broth and looked up at her. I didn't feel like it today. And you don't want rice cakes either. Nope. But I did get soy milk, Summer said, her lips shiny from the food, a cheerful smile on her face. Don't worry about money. I still have a credit card I can use. I just didn't want it, she insisted, sucking on her chopsticks. You're what you eat. Brisket is fatty, and eating it makes you gain weight. My dance instructor told us we have to watch our figures. Leo leaned back on the sofa, silent. He took a long drink of his beer. We're definitely going to make it, he said. We'll have a lot of money, live in a big house, and live happily ever after. I agree with the first two parts, but not the last one. You also think people become unhappy when they get rich. No, that's not it. Summer shook her head like a bobblehead doll. She sat at the small, cracked glass coffee table, trying to cool her mouth with a bottle of soy milk. Since her arrival, the throw pillows had sprouted hair clips. Strands of hair had appeared on the floor. Her presence had made the empty apartment bloom. I think I'm very happy right now, she said. Then don't leave. We can just live in this little apartment forever. Can we really? If you want to live a life of credit card debt, constantly worrying about rent, never daring to own a pet, and where catching a cold is a major crisis, then sure. But we're not lazy. After we finish college and find jobs, a life like this doesn't have to be so bad, right? As she thought about it, she actually started to plan it out in her head, a smile spreading across her face. After a moment of daydreaming, she snapped out of it and looked at Leo. Leo, you don't want to live this kind of life, do you? I don't know. That's okay. If you want to live in a big house, we'll live in a big house. Summer started daydreaming again, simply swapping the apartment for a mansion. It didn't matter, a small apartment or a big house, as long as she was living with him. It's not just about living in a big house. Leo's expression was hesitant, conflicted. Then tell me about it. Summer saw her opening, a chance for him to finally open his heart. She scooted closer to dab his forehead wound with an antiseptic wipe. Look, she was cut off. To reach his forehead, she had to lean forward, which brought her chest right up against his face. He was making a move. Stop messing around. I'm putting medicine on you. You smell so good. Summer was both annoyed and amused. She simply took his hand and guided it inside her shirt. Her own shirt. Can you be quiet for a minute now? Fine. Leo, tell me. Hey, stop moving your hand. A soft moan escaped her lips, and she looked down at him with a strange expression. Can't you wait even 1 minute? Nope. You just don't want me to ask. But she was determined to ask. It was now or never. Leo, what kind of life do you really want to live? I feel like I'm very passive. His answer seemed to come out of left field, but his next words explained everything. The question you're asking is the same one I've been asking myself lately. I used to believe that the answers were on the road ahead, that if I just kept doing things, something would inevitably appear in front of me, and that would be my life. So, whoever appeared in my life, that's the life I would live. Like when you appeared, you had a dream to chase, so my life naturally became about supporting your dream. Because besides that, I didn't know what else to do. If someone else appears in my life later, I'll just follow their life. But recently, I've started to feel like that's a problem. It means I have no clear goal. I don't know what the ultimate purpose of anything I do is, but I still can't seem to change the way I live. Seeing his troubled expression, Summer silently wrapped her arms around him. She lowered her head and whispered, "It's okay. Someone will come along eventually and make you realize this is the life you want to live." She understood his feelings perfectly because it was her greatest fear. Her goal was already set, to keep chasing him. But him? He was adrift, with no vision for his own future. He too would eventually find someone to chase, a life to aspire to. Summer didn't want to live in this apartment anymore. She wanted to go back to LA right now and practice. She had to become better. That person has to be me.